All right, we be live. Hi everyone, how's my audio? Today we're gonna have a very fun stream, a very fun and a very long stream. Do you guys mind if I make today's stream a bit longer than usual? Let me know in the live chat. Let me know in the live chat that you have liked the stream. Please make sure you tell me. And thank you so much for Sarah being here, highlighting your comments so that your comments get to be part of the show. So make sure you include your comments in the live chat so you get to your opinions are part of the show, not just mine. Also, thank you so much, Sarah, for being here. Even though I told you last minute that the show is happening, mwah, I really appreciate you being here. Please, Sarah, when you're highlighting, if you have opinions that are against me, maybe star them. We'll see if we have time at the end of the show to respond to them. And thank you guys. People are saying that they're liking the stream. Thank you so much, guys. Do you mind if I make today? I'm gonna have a lot of fun debunking the BS from Bassem Youssef. So do you, and this is going to be a long stream. Do you guys mind if I make it a longer stream? Let me know. Because there is Roy is in the live chat asking, is Roy on today? Roy could come on today if he wants. Let me know. But yeah, Roy, let me know if you want to come on. I'll send you the link. There's so much misinformation in this video, and I just felt that it was my responsibility to just go over it and just basically pick every single nonsense that is being said here and show it to you guys so you guys could become equipped with the knowledge and the method in which I fact check these things. Yeah, so let me know. Yeah, you guys, people are saying they love long streams. Okay, fantastic. So we're getting some confirmation in live chat that we wanna respond to all of this. Okay, so get started then. Okay. Also, guys, I will read your super chats in the middle of the show. If you guys have any comments with super chats, I will read them every once in a while. So let's start.
Me saying, I only do what I do because I'm after clicks.
I never said that about you.
You did.
I know that you mean well, but you are trying to two-sided.
You're too one-sided.
We should believe that Hamas went in with AK-47 and caused that kind of damage.
What's your argument? The Israelis did all that themselves. A series of reports of women who were raped and abused by Hamas. You don't believe any of them?
Sarah, don't highlight the racism. Like there was leaving stereotype of an Arab liar. Okay, guys, they're accusing Arabs of being stereotypically liars. I don't like that. I don't like that at this channel. Okay, we have many Arab activists doing secular work, doing atheist work, doing pro-Israeli work, LGBT rights work, and I don't know what this means. Arab lawyer, a liar. I mean, Israel is also, and this is coming from someone from Israel. And I also want to mention Israel is 20% Arab, and many Israelis benefit from their Arab citizens in Israel as well. Israel is a country because it's a great country, partly because it respects its Arab population. So let's just be mindful about that type of language here on this channel. Yes, see, Ahmed here, Hamad, yeah, or Hamad. Ahmed here saying Arab atheist here. Love to have you here. Fantastic. Let's continue.
You think none of it's happening?
No, I don't believe.
You're trying to put a little protective shield up to what Hamas did. And my response is, I don't know why you would do that.
Hamas being an Islamic faction, I'm not a big fan, but you should not punish our population because a militant group did some atrocities. What else do you accept? If you treat people like animals, they will behave like animals.
Well, all these cars were obviously blown up by Israel. Hamas didn't do that to any of them. Hamas didn't rape or abuse any women. And it's all bullshit.
Okay, I need to address this this nonsense Tariya claim in the live chat. They use Tariya, bro. The stereotype exists. You're not very smart, I have to tell you. Okay, first of all, most Muslims don't even know about Tariya, and even Tariya is mostly used by Shia scholars. Tariya is actually something that Sunnis accuse Shias of doing. It's not even among Shias. It's not widely recognized by the average population. Again, I'm anti-Islam. And I know what I'm talking about, and you don't know what you're talking about. Okay, so this is not something commonly used. So stop making stuff up. You have no idea. And also, Bassem Youssef is a secular Arab, so he's full of crap. He's an idiot. I think is probably an anti-Semite. I'm not sure. I don't care. He's just ridiculously anti-Israeli. That's what's more important here. And I'm going to basically show you his misinformation without accusing of them of taqiyya. You have no idea what you're talking about. It's absolutely, like, somebody was saying in the live chat, saying they use taqiyya is cringe. It's absolute cringe. It's nonsense. It makes you look like fools. Come to my channel to show you why Islam is ridiculous, because when you shout out taqiyya, you look like an idiot that doesn't know what you're talking about. You have no idea what you're talking about. You just learn this one word and you just go around say taqiyya, taqiyya, taqiyya. No, Islam is ridiculous and barbaric and insane and violent for other reasons. This is not it. This is not something that is widely used.
A year ago this week, I interviewed an exiled Egyptian comedian about the aftermath of October the 7th. It was a time of intense anger and passion. Bassem Youssef's jarring and satirical take became globally iconic. A month later, we met again, face-to-face, in his adopted home city of Los Angeles. And Bassem has since become an unwitting global spokesman for the Palestinian cause and against the way it's been reported by Western media. Well, more than a year in, the war rages on. There's a lot to catch up on. For the first time ever in the Uncensored studio here in London, Bassem Youssef rejoins me. Bassem, great to see you.
Great to see you too.
Finally in London, yes. My home city, finally. Extraordinary that it's been a year. When you think back to that first interview that we did, that 23 million people watched around the world, and I still get asked about it all the time. Just take me back to how you were feeling then. It was so, in the immediate aftermath of October the 7th, Israel's response was coming very hard at the time. What was in your mind at the time when you did that interview and the way you conducted it?
I was very scared. I was advised by my managers and agents not to do the interview because I could lose my career. And I just took it because, and I actually, as a matter of fact, your producers asked me a couple of times and I said no, because,
Really?
And then I said, like, I had to do it.
I want to play, just for those who haven't seen it, there aren't many, but let's take a look at some of that first interview.
Those Palestinians, they're very dramatic. Israel killing us. But they never die. I mean, they always come back. They're very difficult to kill, very difficult people to kill. I know because I'm married to one. I tried many times, couldn't kill her.
I mean, there's a dark humor there.
I mean, okay, so first of all, I'm waiting for the claims. I noticed Bassem Youssef, he doesn't actually have any points, and every time he's cornered, he just makes a joke. I'm not going to comment on the jokes. I don't think they make the jokes that he makes doesn't make any point. They don't. I mean, I'm not against comedy. I'm not against joke. I'm not against dark humor either. I just prefer it when you make. It's just irrelevant to what we're reviewing here. I don't know why people think if you want to enjoy comedy. But if you think somebody is being funny, therefore that makes them. I mean, I don't find it funny. But if you find it funny, the problem is that a lot of people think something is truer when they like the comedy of the person who's saying it. And I think Bassem notices that, right? So that's why a lot of people look to comedians to tell them their news, because just the comedic effect of it makes them feel there must be a truth to it. So just be careful for that trap. Like, not just Bassem Youssef, like even like people who are on your side, right? So let's say somebody is pro-Israeli and they're saying the things that you like, and they're making jokes about it, like a comedy about it. It's okay to laugh about it, but just be careful not to think that your position is correct because of the comedic, because of the comedy. Just be careful. Be careful about that. Okay, so let's continue.
And I understand why, because
it's not dark humor. I try to get to her every time, but she uses our kids as human shields. I can never take her out. I really applaud Israel.
So that's saying, I can't take her out because she uses our kids as human shields. Making light of the fact that, making it seem like the accusation that Hamas or Hezbollah use human shield are baseless. They're not baseless. This has been completely verified. The fact that Hamas and Hezbollah use human shields has been verified. So you can make jokes about it, but that's reality.
Israel for doing one thing that no military force in the world does. Because I heard Ben Shapiro and I heard Ron DeSantis, and they said They said Israel is the only military force in the world that warns civilians before bombing them. I mean, how fucking cute. That is so nice of them. Because with this logic, if Russian troops started warning Ukrainians before bombing their houses, we're cool with Putin, right? I mean, okay, Habibi, you have warned them, go invade. It's fine. You have done your job.
So you understand what's happening here. So there's two wrongs. There's two different wrongs. One is the invasion by Putin. The other one is the killing of civilians. So you're mixing up two different accusations. If you warn people before you bomb an area, that's an indication that in your favor that you're trying to reduce civilian casualties. He says that when we say Israel warns people before they bomb an area, that's an indication that they're trying to reduce civilian casualty. We're not saying whether an invasion is or occupation is justified or not. We're just making a claim about that the specific methodology in which you use to conduct war seems to be in a way to reduce civilian casualties. Now, whether the war itself is justified or not, that's a different topic. There's two topics here. Whether the war is justified, whether you're conducting the war in a way that is justified. These two are two different judgments. When we're noticing that Israel warns people before they bomb an area, that's in their favor regards to the methodology. Whether the war is justified, we could argue that as well. So when you take this to Putin, you say, oh, that's so cute. So if Putin warns Ukrainians before they bombard an area, does that make the invasion justified? No. We could still judge the invasion as unjustified. However, if Putin did warn Ukrainian civilians before he bombarded an area, regards to the methodology, we could judge that maybe Putin is trying to reduce civilian casualties. And so do you see how he mixed that? He thinks that this is a straw man, as if we are arguing that the entire war is justified. No, the war is justified for other reasons. The warning before the bombardment is a judgment on the method in which the war is conducted, not a judgment on whether the war is justified. So he changes the claim as if we're saying the war is justified because Israel is warning civilians before bombarding by comparing that to Putin. No. Okay, so you understand what I'm saying here? It's very important to be able to put these in different compartments and judge them separately. And him, by mixing them, is trying to confuse you. But also notice how he's acknowledging that Israel does warn before bombardment. So even if you want to argue that the occupation or the war is unjustified, can you acknowledge that that is something that most other militaries don't do in this world? Can you acknowledge that that is an attempt to reduce civilian casualty because you're accepting the fact that Israel does do the warning, something that Putin doesn't do? Do you not understand that Israel will become a more moral army because they do that? It does matter. That does matter. Oh, by the way, Mortal Wombat just gifted 5 memberships to everyone here in the live chat. Thank you, Mortal Wombat. Appreciate that. Thank you. That's very sweet. Guys, if you're new members, use the emoticons that you have as members. Yeah. Yes. By the way, when I say occupation, if the occupation is justified, please understand that occupation is not necessarily a bad thing. If a certain area is a threat to your nation, and if you let it go, they will become a greater threat to your nation. That is both morally and based on international laws, you are justified to occupy that area. So just remember that, because we're going to talk about this more.
It was a brilliantly devastating technique you used in that interview, which took me a while to work out.
Yeah, to be honest, it is a brilliant technique, because a lot of people get confused by comedy. A lot of people, instead of fact-checking, instead of seeing if the logic holds, Bassem Youssef has noticed that he doesn't have to make sense as long as he appears to be making some sort of comedy. That is just an effective way of selling bullshit.
Devastating technique you used in that interview, which took me a while to work out what you were doing and why you were doing it. It's very powerful, resonated with many people very closely. where do you think we are with this war now? And in fact, not just the war, obviously, in Gaza, but the wider war that's raging now in Lebanon, the threats against Iran, and so on, the whole thing.
I mean, Israel is defending itself, right? I mean, that's what the Western media is telling us.
They would say they are.
Yeah, yeah, and I want to buy into it. I'm trying to convince my.
Can you
friends.
buy into any of their logic that they believe they are defending themselves?
Okay.
Do you believe them that they believe that?
Let's put that on the test. So if Israel is defending itself, it's defending itself against an imminent danger, like an existential threat. I don't understand.
Okay, so you don't have to be against you could be defending yourself against both imminent dangers and non-imminent dangers. So I don't know why he has to change, like, oh, if Israel is defending itself, it must be defending itself against an imminent danger. No, you could defend yourself against all forms of danger.
Understand if, for example, Macron would announce that he will impose an embargo in Israel's arms, and then Israel goes and bombs the French oil facilities in Lebanon. How is that defending themselves? There's like.
Okay, so here, let's look at this. Okay, he says, let's look at this claim. He says, if Israel is defending itself, then why is it that when Macron puts an embargo on weapon sales to Israel, they will go and bomb a French what? Hold on.
Facilities in Lebanon. How is that defending themselves? And Israel goes and bombs the French oil facilities in Lebanon. How is
French oil facility in Lebanon? Okay, so I'm gonna look to see if that happens. Okay, but before I check that, what if it did happen? Does that mean Israel is not defending itself? Does that mean that Israel is not defending itself? Or maybe Israel is defending itself, and sometimes it does some questionable things. First of all, this accusation seems to be false. Let me just double check this. There's some fact checkers in this. Fact check. Let me bring up the fact checks. Okay, this is actually very easy to check, by the way. Israel target. Yeah, no. This is absolute garbage. Okay, so here, let me share this screen. So this seems to be regarding that. Has Israel deliberately targeted French multinational company Total Energies gas station in Beirut? Okay, so this is a couple of fact checkers figuring out that this is fact. This is false. Fact check. So there's two fact there. Let me check two fact checkers, right? Sure. Fact check. Did Israel target a Total Energies gas station in Beirut following Macron's military aid ban? And again, so you could read all of this fact check, and then let me just read this. A post on X claims that Israel targeted a Total Energies gas station in Beirut after French President Emmanuel Macron banned military aid to Israel. Verdict false. There is no evidence to support the claim that Israel deliberately targeted. Okay, so you could just read this whole thing in full, but I have two fact checks here that both of them are saying it's fake. Let me just read maybe a summary version of it. Okay. Several fact-checking sources have debunked the claim that Israel bombed French facilities, such as those owned by Total Energies in Beirut, allegedly in response to French President Emmanuel Macron's call for an arms embargo on Israel. Social media posts initially circulated this false information, asserting that Israel targeted Total Energies gas station in Lebanon. However, fact-checkers confirmed that while Israel airstrikes have targeted Hezbollah-related infrastructure in southern Beirut, there is no evidence that these strikes deliberately or accidentally hit French-owned facilities. A spokesperson, okay, so there's that, but also, yeah, so basically that's a whole bunch of nonsense. But even if it is true, which is not, this was pure nonsense. That wouldn't even mean, like, let's say, for example, France did embargo on Israel. So, by the way, that doesn't affect Israel that much because France doesn't sell that much weaponry to Israel. But let's say that's true, and then Israel decided to, like, okay, that's bullshit, and we're going to blow up your energy facility in southern Beirut or Lebanon. I forgot where it says, right? So that would not address the question. That would not negate the fact that Israel is defending himself. You could say, like, okay, they are defending themselves, but they are defending themselves using questionable methods, but it doesn't not answer the question that Piers was asking. So notice how he's spreading false information, but even the false information, even if it was true, it would not make the question, it's not even responding to the question being asked.
Said defending themselves. There's like a group of American doctors.
So listen to this again. Now
For
that
example,
I fact checked
Macron would announce that he will impose an embargo in Israel's arms.
By the way,
and then
fuck
Israel
Macron.
goes and
Oh, by the way, guys, fuck Macron for the embargo on Israel. This is it's insane. It's insane.
bombs the French oil facilities in Lebanon. How is that defending themselves? There's like a group of American doctors who were in Gaza and came back, and they reported seeing tens of children with sniper shots in their heads and necks. How is that defending themselves? Just a couple.
Okay, so this one, I've heard this one as well. And this one seems to be more based on true claims, unless you guys have any information for me that it's not. However, we don't have, for some reason, these doctors. So it is true that some doctors have claimed this, multiple doctors. For some reason, they have taken zero pictures or gathered zero evidence of this. They're just claiming it. So I don't know why, if that's the case, they didn't gather information regarding this. However, okay, so let's look at this. I'm going to read. Several doctors and healthcare workers have recently returned from Gaza and have reported observing numerous Palestinian children with gunshot wounds to the head, suggesting that these injuries were inflicted by sniper fire. For instance, Dr. Ferouz Sidha, who worked in Gaza, noted that he encountered children with such wounds almost daily, leading him to suspect intentional targeting rather than accidental collateral damage. Similar reports from other healthcare workers include accounts of preteen children admitted with single, precisely placed gunshot wounds, often fatal. These reports have been supported by medical scans, and photographs. Okay, so there are medical scans and photographs, with major media outlets covering these allegations amid ongoing investigations and denial from Israeli military regarding the intentional targeting of civilians. Okay, so this is something that needs to be investigated. So there are some people have been claiming it. I don't know statistically, in an area where so many people are dying because of the high population density, given that we have so many bullets hitting other places, right? So you have bullets and other military equipment, actions being taken. So what is statistically, because you have the body, so you have a whole bunch of people who have their gunshot to the head or different parts of their body. So given that so many people are dying, you are going to be able to find a high number of people that they have been taking the shot to the head. But and a lot of doctors might have noticed that. I don't know statistically, even if randomly you're taking the shot in many different places of your body, would a small percentage of them will be taking it to the head, will be dying from taking the bullet to the head, and even a small percentage of a large number ends up going to be a large number. So I don't know. This needs to be investigated. Of course, this needs to be taken seriously. I'm not saying this is false. It could be true. I'm saying we should withhold judgment to see if the numbers of such injuries, death from this kind of injury, suggests that some Israeli soldiers are doing such a thing, right? But here's the thing. I wouldn't be surprised if we have bad soldiers on the Israeli side, just like we have bad soldiers in every freaking army. So I don't know. Again, so I'm not going to deny that this is happening. I'm not going to also accept it. I think this needs more investigation, and it should be taken very seriously. And if it's happening, I would not consider that to be a systemic policy of the IDF. I would consider this to be more likely if this is proven to be true. If it is proven, so we don't. Again, I'm not saying we have proof. I'm just saying I'm not rejecting it and I'm not accepting it. I want more investigation to be done on this, right? But if eventually we do have investigation that shows that some Israeli soldiers were deliberately doing some heinous acts, that just shows that the Israeli military has bad soldiers like every other army on the fucking planet. It does not prove a systemic policy from top down by the IDF. In the same way, we have proof, for example, that the Hamas itself has a systemic policy from the top down within their charter, within their methodology, within their goals to kill civilians. So remember, one side probably has some horrible soldiers as part of the entirety of army. Like you will never have an army that is purely made out of good soldiers. Okay, you're never going to have that. So D is saying the skulls were intact, fake. I don't know if I'm seeing that. D, if you could send me that. I don't know if this is based on what I'm seeing. There are doctors that are claiming this. So reports from some healthcare workers. I don't know how reliable these doctors are. Okay, I don't know. And I'm seeing that a lot of this has gotten a lot of attention by the media. I'm glad that these things get a lot of attention by media. These things should not be ignored. Just because we're on Israel's side, we should not act like Israel, every single Israeli soldier is just the best person on the planet and would not commit war crimes. You have to understand that war crimes will happen no matter how much you try for them not to happen. War crimes will happen from your side. Even if you have the most moral army in the world, you will have war crimes on your side. The question is, what are you going to do about it? And the question is, can you accuse the entirety of the IDF with having certain bad soldiers doing some war crimes? So guys, even if we find out that this is fake, you have to understand that given the scale of this war, there are going to be some examples of war crimes by individual soldiers on the Israeli side. Like, even if this one is fake, even without any investigations, it's almost guaranteed that even if it's never found out, it's almost guaranteed that some Israeli soldiers, in some places, are going to be committing war crimes. But you have to be careful for them not to use that to brush the entire Israeli military with the same brush, as if the entire thing is a criminal institution. It's not. The IDF is the most moral army on the planet. The IDF is the military force that has done more than any army in the world to try to reduce civilian casualties. If your standard for the IDF is absolute zero war crimes by every single soldier, then that's the standard that no army in the world is going to ever be able to meet. That's a holding Israel's army to a standard that we don't hold any army in the world to. That's a double standard that we always have for the Jews, apparently, but not for anyone else. Anyways, let's continue. So Nastasia is saying no credibility from the doctors reporting. Compare their statements on Ukraine, where they state humanitarian doctors don't judge morality. Okay, so again, based on what I'm saying, this hasn't been investigated as deeply as it should be. So I'm not saying that these doctors are telling the truth, but be careful. We shouldn't be claiming that they're lying either. We should be saying, as of right now, our position should be, I think, that we don't know, that we're going to withhold judgment until there's more investigation. That's the position I think we should be having regarding this right now. Okay, so let's not just make this a black and white thing. Okay, so let's continue.
A couple of days ago, we saw a little kid being shot by a drone. His family came to
to help him, and then they were all killed. How is that defending itself? I mean,
So this one I could not fact check because he did not specify. He wasn't very specific about what he's talking about, so I was not able to fact check this one.
I hear it, but I just don't see it.
But do you believe that fundamentally Israel believes it is acting in self-defense?
Israel can believe whatever they want. I'll tell you a story that actually can tell you exactly how Israel. I'm from Egypt.
It's important for you to consider the motivations and the justifications and the intentions on the other side. When you say Israel can believe whatever it wants, you're suggesting that the intentions don't matter. Even if you consider Israel to be evil, you have to care about their intentions if you're trying to motivate them to do something else, even if they were evil.
You understand this? You don't know this, right?
Yeah.
April 1970, there was an attack of an Egyptian school in the middle of Delta, 100 kilometers.
Wait, what year? What year?
There was an attack of
Hold on, let's go.
You don't know what they want. I'll tell you a story that actually can tell you exactly how Israel. I'm from Egypt. You understand this? You don't know this, right?
Yeah.
April 1970, there was an attack.
1970. Okay, so guys, remember when he says April 1970, anything he says from now is invalid, because whatever examples he's going to give me of Israel is doing something wrong is going to be anecdotal. Let me actually look at his example. And you have to remember, when he says 1970, you're talking about any tragedy that now you give me as an example is going to be the fault of the Arab countries that started the war. Let me actually let him give you that example while I bring up some
defense.
Israel can believe whatever they want. I'll tell you a story that actually can tell you exactly how Israel. I'm from Egypt. You understand this? You don't know this, right?
Yeah.
April 1970, there was an attack of an Egyptian school in the middle of Delta, 100 kilometers from where my parents were born. It's called Bahr al-Bakr. On that day, Israel bombed a school, killing 30 students. Now, what was so interesting going back in history, this was the headline of the New York Times of the day. And it says 30 pupils in Egypt said to die in raid. Said to die, the passive voice. Which raid? Who did the raid? We don't know. And then you read it. This is Moshe Dayan. He was the defense minister of Israel at the time. He said, the target had been a military structure that had been photographed from air both before and after the raid. What could have happened here was irresponsibility of high orders from the Egyptians that they set aside a floor or some room for civilian purposes such as a school. Now, do you believe that? You don't, right? It's
well, why? Okay, first of all, why don't you believe that? Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But let's say, for example, it's not true. Let's say that Israel made a whole bunch of mistakes in the 1970s when they were during the war of attrition. So okay, so it's called the war of attrition in 1967, from 1967 to 1970, where Israel and Egypt were locked in a prolonged, conflict. But let's see. Okay, so this war, the war of attrition and the ongoing conflict between Israel and Arab countries were largely initiated by Arab states' refusal to recognize Israel and their aim to reclaim territories lost in the 1967 Six-Day War, right? So basically what he's talking about, let's say, for example, let's accept that during those times, when Israel was defending itself, sometimes it did some certain things that was not good. Like, no, it was not perfect. You understand that even without checking, I could guarantee you that in every single war where Israel was defending itself from annihilation, even without checking, I could guarantee you that Israel did certain things that were not right. How could it get a perfect score? Of course, it's not going to get a perfect score. Of course, Israel is going to make mistakes when in war. So what you do is that you go, as a critic of Israel, go find those specific mistakes and mention those anecdotes as a way to suggest that the entire war, the entire Israel defending itself, is unjustified. But look at the larger picture. Instead of giving me anecdotes, why was Israel in that war anyways. Israel, it was in that war because Arab countries were attacking Israel. So those children in that school died because these Arab states refused to accept United Nations proposal to make Israel a country and to have Palestine as a country, and they were trying to annihilate Israel. The reason why we had the 1948 war and the 1967 war that would continue to all the way to 1970 is because they were attacking Israel, and Israel was trying to defend itself. Israel was justified to defend itself from annihilation. When defending itself, did it make mistakes? Yes, it made mistakes. Did some civilians die that could have been spared if Israel didn't make certain mistakes? Yes. But can you understand that the main aggressor were the Arab countries trying to annihilate Israel? That none of these civilians would have died if they could just accept Israel being a country in that region, and they could have been neighbors to Israel, and they would have benefited from having Israel as a neighbor? That Israel as a neighbor would have been brought them peace and prosperity if they just accepted it and decided to do trade with it? Oh yeah, by the way, Amir is saying don't forget to like the stream. So the blood of those, even if Israel made a mistake and civilians died that could have been spared, the blood of those children is on the leaders of the Arab countries that decided to start a war to begin with. Israel didn't want a war. Israel didn't even want a war. Israel was ready to live in peace with its Arab neighbors. Of course, when you attack it and then when they're trying to defend themselves, they're going to make mistakes. Of course, that's going to happen. Guys, be careful when you're defending Israel, not to act like Israel doesn't make any mistakes. Don't try to make Israel like purely made out of good decisions all the time. Okay, just make it clear. Just look at the timeline of what happens and show that every single war started with the Arabs attacking, with the Arab countries attacking, and every attempt, every serious attempt to end the war and have peace started with Israel. Just tell them that. Tell them like, okay, yeah, Israel made a mistake here, but why do we even have a war? We have a war because the Arab countries constantly wanted to eliminate Israel. Even up to this day, they don't like the Palestinians. Now, Saudi Arabia have given that up. Jordan has given that up. Egypt has given that up. But the reason why we still have war is because the Palestinians refuse to accept having Israel as a neighbor. This is why we have so much death and destruction. Israel doesn't want war. War is being brought to Israel. War is being forced upon Israel. Israel wants peace. But let's continue.
Ridiculous. And the fact is that the New York Times then, same as New York Times there, covering for it. But there was one thing that caught my attention. They said no mention was made of the use of napalm in the attack. I said, why would we have such a disclaimer? It's because 3 months ago, Israel bombed a civilian metal plant, killing 70 workers with napalm. So this, when I hear Israel defend itself...
Let me check this as well.
Israel bombed a civilian metal plant, killing 70 workers with napalm. So this, when I hear Israel defend itself, when I hear the IDF, they're liars. And I'm sorry to say, but they are.
Do you categorize what Hamas has been doing, particularly on October the 7th, what Hezbollah did within hours of October the 7th and carried on for the next year?
Wait, let me see if this is the case. I'm not finding any specific information regarding this. Where is he getting this from? I want to fact check to see if there was a deliberate... Yeah, I'm not seeing this. This seems to be not true. There is no credible evidence. This seems to be based on nothing. I'm not seeing anything from this. Guys, have you heard of this accusation? This is a new one. This seems to be... Nope, I'm not seeing anything like this. He said 6 months ago. There's nothing. Where is he getting this?
Categorize what?
So such a disclaimer. It's because 3 months ago,
3 months
Israel
ago.
bombed a civilian.
Okay, 3 months ago.
Metal plant, killing 7.
Why doesn't Piers Morgan have like a fact-checking person behind the scene doing what I'm doing here right now? Like, he's just gonna say that? I'm not finding any specific information about Israel using napalm in a metal plant 3 months ago. There's nothing here. There's absolutely nothing. Guys, have you heard of this? Why is this not being fact-checked? Like, this video has almost 2 million views, and he just says this to 2 million people, and nobody comes and double checks whether he just says that, and people are just there's like, this is one of the biggest shows ever. Like, Piers Morgan Uncensored is one of the, I mean, I'm pretty sure they could hire a fact checker behind the scene to just double check this so that he doesn't just spread lies on the show with 2 million followers, 2 million viewers. Like I'm doing this. Why is Piers Morgan doesn't have some assistants or somewhere doing what I'm doing here? Like, we're such a small channel, and I can do this very easily. Why is Piers Morgan doesn't have an expert researcher right next to him, making sure that he checks everything this man is saying? What the hell?
20 workers with napalm. So this, when I hear Israel defend itself, when I hear the IDF, they're liars, and I'm sorry.
Oh, they're liars. Okay, so here's the thing. He's saying because he doesn't believe them about that story or this story, everything else that IDF says must be a lie. So I don't understand. This is just pure insanity when it comes to trying to decide. So he's so biased. Like, guys, I don't like, we are against Hamas here on this channel, okay? But for example, when I hear a report from Hamas, I'm not going to say that, okay, Hamas, this is false information because Hamas is saying it. I'm saying this has to be checked and verified. But I'm not going to make my conclusion of a claim being wrong just because. So for example, when I don't trust Bassem Youssef. I'm not going to say because Bassem Youssef is saying it, then it's false. I have to go fact check it. Maybe he says something that is correct. I don't know. But the lack of, if you think a person or an institution or a group lacks credibility, that doesn't mean what they're saying is necessarily false. It just means that you actually have to fact check what they're saying.
Sorry to say, but they are.
Do you categorize what Hamas has been doing?
Guys, did any of you find what he was saying? Because I am getting nothing from 3 months ago regarding a metal plant being bombed with napalm or whatever like that. I'm seeing nothing. So if you guys are noticing that, no, Soha is saying no, because it's weird, because this claim that he's making, unlike every other thing that he said, even the lies that he's saying, is based on a true story that he's just misrepresenting. But this one is just, nothing is showing up for this one. Maybe I'm not searching in the right place. This is weird. This last one was weird.
Doing, particularly on October the 7th, what Hezbollah did within hours of October the 7th and carried on for the next year, what the Houthis have done, a lot of it orchestrated by, doubtless, the Iranian regime. Do you categorize that as resistance, as freedom fighting?
Mm-hmm.
Or are there elements of all those groups who are genuinely terrorist in their thinking?
Well, someone's a terrorist is other one's.
Yeah, but how you categorize?
How I categorize.
So, guys, when you say someone's terrorist and someone else's freedom fighter, then in that point, I want to see if you just consider them to be moral monsters or not. I don't care about the categorization of if they're terrorist or not terrorist. Okay, at that point, if you want to play around with the definition of, okay, well, someone else is terrorist. Okay, I don't care. Maybe they're not terrorists or they're disgusting. Like, for example, based on the definition of terrorism, the Nazis were not terrorists because they were the official state of a country. So the main question should not necessarily be, is it terrorism or not terrorism? I think the main question should be whether this is morally disgusting or is it just justifiable? Because there are so many disgusting crimes against humanities that doesn't fit under the legal definition of terrorism. So maybe just throw that question away and ask them if you condemn this or not, like whether instead of asking them if this is terrorism or not.
Categorize it. I mean, like I'm an American citizen. Of course, I don't want to come back and find the FBI.
Oh wait, what? Let's go back.
Are the elements of all those groups who are genuinely terrorist in their thinking?
Oh, someone's a terrorist is other one's.
Yeah, but how you categorize it.
How I categorize it? I mean, like I'm an American citizen. Of course, I don't want to come back and find the FBI raiding my house. So yes, of course, the terrorist.
Oh, so okay. So by the way, Black Angel is saying he meant 3 months before the attack on the 1st of April in 1970. Okay, so I'm not sure if he's talking about that. Let me see. What about? I mean, then we're gonna get back to a whole bunch, a different era, a different time period where, I mean, even back then, Israel's standard when in warfare was much better than the Arab countries, but Israeli aircraft used napalm bombs during the attack. Okay, yeah. So back then, the standards were even lower for everyone than they are now. And back then, Israel today has much higher standards than back then. But yeah, so we're going back to the war of attrition, which is a war started by the Arab countries trying to annihilate Israel. And back then, to be fair, Israel back then had a really high standard compared to the Arab countries, but their standards back then was not as high as their standards today. And to be fair, no one's standard back then was as high as the standards today. So this is a very unfair, so the fact that Bassem Youssef has to go find examples like this and from the 1970s, a war started by the Arab countries, and then finding some mistake by Israel back then in response to it defending Israel from absolute annihilation, shows that their hands are so empty for examples today that they have to go back to the 1970s. This is actually a compliment to Israel's standards of war today, where even when you want to do anecdotal evidence to paint the entire Israeli military with the same brush, you are so empty with examples today that you have to go back 50 freaking years to find examples to try to make us hate Israel. That's actually a compliment to how much Israel standards has improved over the years. This is great progress, guys. Keep it up.
Did you believe that?
Well, at the advice of my lawyer, I would say.
Well, I don't think you'd be banned from going back to America.
You think? You know what happened?
So here's the thing. Now, look at this. Look at the way he is being told if he considers Hamas to be a terrorist, right? And he says, at the advice of my lawyers, yes, they are terrorists. So that means he's saying that he doesn't consider them to be terrorists, right? So listen to this part. He is basically saying he doesn't consider. If you say at the advice of my lawyers, I'm going to say they are terrorists, that means that you don't consider them to be terrorists.
Right? Of all those groups who are genuinely terrorist in their thinking.
Oh, someone's a terrorist is other one's.
Yeah, but how you categorize it.
How I categorize it? I mean, like I'm an American citizen. Of course, I don't want to come back and find the FBI raiding my house. So yes, of course, the terrorist.
Did you believe that?
The FBI does not come raid your house for saying Hamas is not a terrorist. This is an absolute insane lie. United States has the best standard for freedom of expression. You have to be absolutely insane and ignorant to think that FBI will be raiding your fucking house for saying Hamas is not a terrorist group. If that was the case, FBI would have to be working overtime right now, raiding the house of thousands of American citizens that recently came out in protest, supporting Hamas, considering Israel to be a terrorist, considering all of this Hezbollah and Hamas to be resistance. Why is, for example, Mehdi Hassan not being raided by the FBI? Do you know how many people in the United States have openly came and claimed that Hamas and Hezbollah, these are resistance groups, freedom fighters, and it's Israel that is a terrorist? Nothing happened to any of them legally for saying that. Nobody's being raided. What are you? Yeah, so do you think the idiot college kids are braver? Yeah, what an absolute coward. But also, you are saying that you're managing to be a coward, but also showing to us that you don't consider Hamas to be a terrorist group at the same time. Whose house gets raided in the United States for saying Hamas is not a terrorist group? What are you talking about? There's look at, is this guy is he an American? Did he just say he's an American citizen? Hold on.
I don't want to utter one's.
Yeah, but how you?
Well, someone's a terrorist is other one's.
Yeah, but how you categorize?
How I categorize it? I mean, like I'm an American citizen. Of course, I don't want to.
Oh my! He's an American citizen. You ungrateful motherfucker! Like, you are been given the citizenship of one of the freest countries in the world, with a standard for freedom of speech that almost no other country enjoys. And as an American citizen, instead of being grateful for that, instead of being thankful for that privilege, for that right, you're making false accusations against your country that has given you all these rights and freedom for you to enjoy. Instead of being grateful and appreciative, you're basically going to make a false accusation that FBI is going to raid your house for your opinion. What an ungrateful mother! Oh my God! What an ungrateful piece of shit! You shouldn't have been given a citizenship. You shouldn't have been given an American citizenship. If you are going to be this ungrateful for the freedom, for the rights and freedom that comes with your American citizenship, you shouldn't have been given an American citizenship. Look at this motherfucker. Unbelievable. I get so angry when a country is generous and welcoming enough to accept you as a citizen with open arms and giving you all these rights and freedoms and all the privileges that all other citizens enjoy, doing so much for you. And what do you do in response? You shit on that country and make false accusations against them. This is so disgusting. This is so vile. You shouldn't have, the citizenship has been wasted on you. You shouldn't have been given American citizenship.
I'm gonna come back and find the FBI.
Yeah, but by the way, this is a fucker that has run away from Egypt for prosecution. Look at this. This Bassem Youssef, for his comedy, so he's an Egyptian American, so he has Egyptian citizenship and American citizenship, and he had to run away from Egypt because they don't enjoy the same level of freedom of speech in Egypt that they enjoy in America. So he's pretending something to be true about America, something that he has experienced in Egypt. He gets to say the things in America that he doesn't get to say in Egypt. And instead of being grateful, because he gets raided for his opinion in Egypt, not in America. So he's projecting his experience in Egypt on America. Like that, shouldn't that give him a moment of reflection that I came to United States as refuge from Egypt because they were attacking me, they were after me in Egypt for my opinion. And it's the false accusations that he's making about the United States, it comes from your original country, Bassem Youssef, from an Arab country, from a Muslim country. That's not the standard in the United States. That's the standard from your country of birth. You motherfucker. Unbelievable. But let's continue.
raiding my house. So yes, of course, they're terrorists.
Did you believe that?
Well, at the advice of my lawyer, I would say
Well, I don't
that
think,
they're terrorists.
I don't think you'd be banned from going back to America.
You
if you said
think?
they were
You
terrorists.
know what happened to Scott Ritter?
So you are a terrorist sympathizer. So guys, Bassem Youssef is a terrorist sympathizer. If he's saying at the advice of my lawyer, I'm going to call them a terrorist group, meaning that he supports Hamas. He doesn't consider them to be terrorists.
Well, I don't
That
think,
they're terrorists.
I don't think you'd be banned from going back to America.
You
if you said
think?
they were
You
terrorists.
know what happened to Scott Ritter? He was the former UN inspector of nuclear weapon in Iraq.
He's
He
a
had-
convicted paedophile.
yeah, but like he was.
That's your example? Unbelievable. Okay, let me actually see who this guy is. Okay, let's see. He's a convicted. Okay, so let's see. Okay.
when
Be banned from going back to America.
You
if you said
think?
they were
So, guys, he has an example for somebody actually being raided. And this apparently he says for his opinions against Israel. So let's fact check that. Let's see if that's true.
you know what happened to Scott Ritter? He was the former UN inspector of nuclear weapon in Iraq.
He's
He
a
had-
convicted paedophile.
yeah, but like when he was raided a few months ago, it was because he was talking against Israel. Asa,
Okay, so let's see who this Scott Ritter is, and is it because he was speaking against Israel? Okay, so Scott Ritter is a former United Nations weapon inspector and Marine Corps intelligence officer. He was arrested for and convicted in 2011 following a sting operation involving unlawful online contact with a minor. This case was one of several legal issues he faced after his work with the UN in Iraq, where he had gained attention for his U.S. Criticism of U.S. foreign policy. Ritter later served a prison sentence related to this conviction, and he has since been involved in various controversies and public discussions. Okay, so that was his first time apparently he was arrested because of that, because he was in touch with the minor. But there was a more recent raid. Okay, so he was recently raided by the FBI in August 2024. The raid was at his home in New York as part of an investigation into potential violations of the Foreign Agents Registration Act, which requires individuals representing foreign interests to disclose their activities. Ritter has stated that he believes this action was partly due to his outspoken stance on U.S. foreign policy, especially his criticism related to Russia and Israel. Just before the raid, Ritter appeared on a program where he made controversial statements comparing Israel to Nazi Germany. Okay. Well, Ritter has argued that his efforts. Okay, so that's his argument. So he has denied it concerning U.S. foreign policy with Russia. The raid involved seizing numerous boxes as evidence and electronic devices. But as of now, no concrete evidence has been publicly disclosed to support claims that he acted as an undeclared foreign agent. Okay, so they arrested him. So first they arrested him because he was basically in touch with a minor and doing some things there. But the second raid was because apparently he was representing a foreign government without disclosing them. Apparently he's like, so that's why FBI raided. So Bassem Youssef is just believing Scott Ritter's own claims that, oh no, they're raiding me because I am criticizing Israel and United States. How does Bassem Youssef know that? The FBI is saying that we raided his house because he has undisclosed relationship with foreign governments and stuff like that, right? So yes, his home, potential violations of the Foreign Agents Registration Act. And he himself is like, nah, you guys just don't like my criticism of Israel. And Bassem Youssef knows that he just trusts Scott Ritter's account on this. I don't know if Bassem Youssef has any evidence. So because this person, this is how Bassem Youssef comes to the conclusion that this was because he is a critic of Israel. So you have a person that is a critic of Israel, and he gets arrested. And these two data points means that is enough for Bassem Youssef to find a causal link between these two dots. Okay? Do you understand how insane that is? You have this happening and this happening. That must mean they're caused. Right? So, for example, Ash just gave us a super chat. And just before Ash gave us a super chat, I had a sip of my drink a couple of minutes before Ash gave us a super chat. These are two data points that happened close to each other. Does that mean that there's a causal link between these two data points? Does that mean that Ash's super chat was caused by me drinking, taking a sip of my drink? That's how Bassem Youssef comes to conclusion. Like, can you show us, Bassem Youssef, that the reason why they arrested him? And maybe, guys, remember, correlation is not causation, even when you have multiple data points. But he doesn't even have multiple data points for me to even make the case that correlation is not causation. He has only two data points. And so the correlation, you haven't even established correlation, let alone causation. But even if you assume correlation, maybe a guy who's anti-US policy and anti-Israel is more likely to be an actual foreign agent than someone else. So there's a third external correlating factor that is actually the chain of cause that completes the chain of causality. Do you understand? So maybe his anti-Israeli and anti-US perspective is the reason why he has these opinions, and also the reason why he's a foreign agent without disclosing it, which leads to the raid. But again, these are too complicated for a mind like Bassem Youssef. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? Do you guys how basically the simple version of it is that Bassem Youssef has not shown us that the raid was caused by his opinions against Israel. He's just claiming it without any verifiable evidence. That's the simple version of what I just said. By the way, what is it? What does the super chats? There are super chats that I haven't read. Ash just gave us a super chat saying the P and S in Marine Corps are silent. Okay, I don't get the joke, but thank you for the super chat for the people who got it. Eagle gave us a 15 shekel. Yay! We got shekels. I love it when we get support from Israel. Eagle saying the ungrateful noble physician was brought to the U.S. courtesy of Jon Stewart. Okay, thank you so much. I didn't know that. Thank you so much for the super chat. Appreciate that. And also, we got another super chat. £2 saying shalom. Well, shalom back to you. Yeah, I'm trying to start my shows by saying shalom instead of hi everyone. I keep forgetting. I will turn that into a habit, because I've noticed when I start the show by saying shalom, it pisses off anti-Israeli people. So I kind of like that. So I'm going to try to get the habit of starting the show by saying shalom everyone, shalom. Eventually I will get there. Let's continue.
Win Stanley. He was a British journalist in London, and his house was raided just last week because he talked about.
Oh, so true. Armin is pronounced Marine Corps. Oh, okay. So now I get it. So Marine Corps. Okay. Thank you so much for the pronunciation.
About Israel. And this is actually, Piers, what I like about you is that you are a fierce warrior against cancel culture. Right?
Yeah.
If you cancel people for their opinion, we're not living in a free world anymore, right?
I totally agree.
So, for example, you have Robert Saleh, who was the coach of the NFL Jets. He wore like a small Lebanese flag, and he was canceled. I mean, I don't know. It's interesting. I came to America, and I was so happy that I can speak about anyone I want, and then suddenly it's like, oh, we can do whatever you want, unless if it's like
it is. I mean, it's tangible to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have all these pro-Hamas and pro-Hezbollah position, and nobody is knocking at your door. Nobody is arresting you. In fact, it's so bizarre because they're like, oh, I came to America because you could have all these opinions and all. Yeah, but you have these opinions and nobody's doing anything to you. In fact, you have a much louder voice because you have these opinions. People get people get famous for having these opinions. Why are you acting like you're being silent? Why do you have to act like you're the victim? Let me see his claim here.
Lebanese coach of the NFL Jets. He wore like a small Lebanese flag, and he was. I mean, I don't know. It's interesting. I came to America, and I was so happy that I can speak about anyone I want, and then suddenly it's like, oh, we can do whatever you want, unless if it's like
It is. I mean, it's tangible.
Unless if it's Israel, you idiot. You have been in, because of your anti-Israeli position, your voice has become louder. All these shows with millions of people are inviting you to speak because of your anti-Israeli position. How do you get to act like you're being silenced when the United States and all these Western media are giving you the loudest megaphones ever, and like the largest media in the world with the highest number of audience are inviting you to give your opinion? They have gifted you the loudest megaphones in the history of mankind because of your shitty opinions, and you still act like you're the victim, like you're being silenced? I don't understand this. How do you still manage to be the victim?
To me, when I go to America, far more than it is in the UK, for example, the support for Israel is pretty rock solid in terms of their political class, in terms of much of the media, if not all of the media. It's more tangible in America than it is in most other countries.
Yeah,
good,
including here.
Yeah,
a lot more criticism of Israel here than there is in America.
Yeah, and yet,
yeah, Americans. I'm so glad that Americans, even till this day, because a lot of people don't know that the protests, anti-Israeli protests in America, is a minority of people. Most Americans support Israel, and good on them. So what's the point? Yeah, good job, Americans.
You have Israel having a crazy control on the political apparatus, whether in America or in here. I mean, 13 out of 25 of the labor cabinet here are funded.
Oh, by the way, Americans should be supporting Israel even more, because a lot of Americans support Israel because they think like, oh yeah, Israel seems to be on the side of liberalism, democracy, and freedom, and they live lives closer to us. The other side seems to be a barbarian, violent people that want to commit genocide, that they have an ideology that seems insane. So it's pretty easy which side we are supporting. Okay, so that's why most Americans support Israel. But I think Americans should understand that the support for Israel should become a lot more once they understand that it's not just a matter of who's right. Israelis are fighting America's enemies. So the support, if Americans were even more informed about what would happen, the support would increase, because it's not just a matter of who's in the right, which is obviously Israel is in the right, but it's also a matter of Israel is sacrificing its safety, its citizens, its soldiers, fighting the wars that Americans should actually be participating in, but it's fighting their wars for them. Israel is fighting against America's enemies, and for America, it should go just more than just support. They should be aggressively doing everything they can to protect Israel and also support Israel, not just with wars, but with action. They're sacrificing for themselves for the whole world, not just for Israel. Like, the whole world is benefiting because of Israel. Israel is fighting the world's enemies, the whole world's enemies. The whole world should be thanking Israel. The whole world owes so much to Israel, because the world is, the people who want to go and destroy the entirety of the world liberal order are stuck in the Middle East right now. That's the phase that they're stuck in because Israel is in their way.
America or in here. I mean, 13 out of 25 of the labor cabinet here are funded by Israeli lobbies. 126 out of 355 MPs are funded by Israel. I mean,
so the Israel lobbies claim, guys, every other country that has a relationship with the United States has lobbies in the United States. So this to me shows the level of anti-Semitism, and also the lobby that the AIPAC lobby is not even an Israeli lobby. These are American citizens that happen to be Israeli or Jewish as well. So that's not even but even if it was, Saudi Arabia has lobbies. China has lobbies in the United States. Even the Islamic Republic in Iran has lobbies in the United States, even though it's illegal for them to have lobbying in Washington. They even have lobbying in Washington. So every other country has lobby groups in Washington. And guess what? Almost every other country, the main countries, almost every powerful country has lobby groups in Washington, and also United States has lobby groups in other countries. So this is something this is part of politics, lobbying the government to get to do for the government to do the things that are within the interest of your country or your industry is part of politics everywhere. But for some reason, people are like, oh, they're under the influence of Israeli lobby groups, as if like, yeah, who doesn't do that? Everyone does that. Everyone does that. Germany does that. France does that. Israel does that. Saudi Arabia does that. China does that. But all of a sudden, when it comes to the Jews, it becomes this vile, disgusting thing because the conspiracy theory of the Jews controlling the media and the politicians with money, everybody that could use money and resources to influence politics is using money and resources and media to influence politics. But we highlight the Jews when they do it because the stereotypical Jews behind the curtains puppeteering the whole world order. This is the reason why we have a double standard here. Again, remember, every time you hear Israelis lobbying the US government, ask them, isn't that part of politics? Doesn't every other country do this as well? Why are you highlighting this? Why wouldn't I do that? Lobbying is a legal way to influence politics. Wouldn't it be insane for you not to be lobbying the government, given that this is an open door for every country to do? I don't understand. Also, don't we now have Jewish lobby groups that are anti-Israeli in the United States? So we have that as well. We have lobbies that are pro-Israel, Jewish lobby groups that are pro-Israel, and we have Jewish lobby groups that are trying to influence politics of the United States that are anti-Israel. So we have that as well. I don't understand. What is this accusation? They're using their this is another example of Jews doing whatever Jews do is going to be condemned in some way, even if it's something that is acceptable, even if it's something that everyone else does. When the Jews do it, it becomes evil for some reason, apparently.
It's out of those 13 members of cabinet is the prime minister himself, his counselor, his deputy, the home secretary, the foreign secretary, and the secretary of the treasury, who oversees the arms shipments to Israel. So
yeah, and all of these other politicians are under the influence of lobby groups by Germany, by France, by China, and in fact, lobby groups by China do a far more destructive and damaging things than the ones by Israel.
I don't understand why. I mean, I think we should talk about that more about anything, because that is actually what gives Israel the cover for what they're doing.
My take on Israel's government is
no, does Israel give the cover for what they do? Israel using politics. Israel should just basically crawl in a corner and just die for these people to be satisfied. Israel basically doing politics is now condemned. Okay, fantastic.
That Netanyahu, to get back into power, aligned himself with some very hard right-wing people who've spoken in a very genocidal language about what they really want to do with Gaza and Palestinian people, and that he should go and they should go, and there should be new leadership in Israel, but that there should also be no place in power or government going forward for a group like Hamas after what they did on October the 7th. Would you agree with me?
Well, I'm not a Palestinian, so I cannot really...
What's your view?
Well, what's...
Fucking bullshit. Fucking bullshit. Shut the fuck up. You support... So here's the thing. He supports Hamas. He calls them freedom fighters. And then when he is when he's cornered and highlighted how evil the Hamas is and the actions that they have done, and whether that should be accepted, he's like, well, I'm not a Palestinian. Well, you're not a fucking Israeli either. It doesn't stop you from condemning Israel. Like, oh, I'm not a Palestinian. Well, then why do you condemn Israel? Are you an Israeli? Motherfucker.
my view?
Look at the excuses that these people So that makes him a Hamas sympathizer. When they try to, weasel their way out of basically answering a question, he's a Hamas sympathizer.
Well, I'm not a Palestinian, so I cannot really.
What's your view?
Well, what's my view? Oh, yeah, I understand the view of. Well, there's two things about it. First of all, when you say that Netanyahu and Smotrich and Ben Gvir should go, it's as if as the rest of the Israeli political scene is peaceful. As a matter.
So this is why I don't understand what Piers Morgan. Did you see how he switched the subject? Piers Morgan was trying to get an answer out of him. So he's saying like, okay, these far-right parties should go from Israel. Should Hamas basically go as well? And he was like, well, I'm not a Palestinian. Shut the fuck up. You're not an Israeli either, but you have comments about Israel all the time. But then it's like, okay, but what is your view? They're like, he's basically, you saw that time he was basically mumbling a little bit. He was trying to see, how could I get away from answering this question? And the way he always does that is he changes the subject and doesn't answer the question. And Piers Morgan, for some reason, sometimes he does notice that that's what's happening. But here he doesn't notice that. He goes like, oh, well, see how he changed the subject here? Look at you see his face here? This is him trying to think of a way of not answering the question. And he changes the subject to, well, you saying that these people like Smotrich and Ben Gvir should go away, but the Israeli public, blah 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 blah. Okay, but that was not the original question. Look at how it does this. Look at this part again.
October the 10th, new leadership in Israel, but that there should also be no place in power or government going forward for a group like Hamas after what they did.
So he cannot even simply say that Hamas should not be in power. He's not going to say look at the ways, the methods of him not answering that question. That means that he doesn't want to say Hamas shouldn't be in power. He's a Hamas sympathizer. Look at
on October the 7th. Would you agree with me?
Well, I'm not a Palestinian, so I cannot.
Method number one, I'm not a Palestinian.
What's your view?
Well,
okay? So what's your view? So here, Piers Morgan is trying to I don't care. What's your view?
My view? Oh, yeah, I understand the view of. Well, there's.
See, you see when he's looking in the sky, he's trying to think about how could I switch the subject. That's what.
Two things about it. First of all, when you say that Netanyahu and Smotrich and Ben Gvir should go, it's as if as the rest of the Israeli political scene is peaceful. As a matter of fact, more than 90%.
Yep. See, not answering your question, like as if the rest of them are peaceful. Okay, this is diversion. This is diversion. First of all, the rest of the political parties in Israel are absolutely peaceful. They are peaceful. They have, throughout the history of Israel, they have been constantly trying to negotiate peace with the Palestinians. They have been trying to come up with ways to give Palestinians a country, and Palestinians have refused to accept peace as long as Israel gets to be a country throughout their history. And the Palestinians have constantly chosen war over peace, and these other parties have tried to convince the Palestinians to stop fighting and just accept Israel and Palestine as two neighboring countries. And they were like, no, as every single time, the Palestinian side has said, no, as long as Israel gets to be a country, we will continue war. So they have refused to make Palestine a country if that means Israel gets to be a country as well. So yeah, they are actually, these other parties, even Likud is actually peace-loving compared to these two other more recent, far-right parties in Israel. So yes, they are all peaceful. The point is that they have realized that negotiating with the Palestinians does not get you peace. They came to the realization that the way to peace is to crush your enemies. That's how you get long-lasting peace. So that's what they have realized, that this is not a party that you could negotiate with. You could only get peace by victory. But they are peace-loving. They want peace. Israel wants peace more than any other country in the world, because Israel's existence is constantly being challenged, and that's why Israel doesn't want tension in the region. Israel is obsessed with trying to get to a position where we eventually get peace in this region.
Of the Israeli political scene is
so somebody Likud signed the peace treaty, signed a peace agreement with Egypt. Yeah, and actually, the right-leaning parties were the parties throughout Israel's history that gave up the most land for the sake of peace. These are so every time Israel like gave up land, just like, oh, here's this land, here's that land. You could just have this. You could have this. Please, just can we now have peace? They were actually every time they gained land is because the other side was the aggressor and they lost land in their aggression. So every time Israel managed to gain more land is because the other side was stupid enough to start a war and they lost. And every time Israel lost land, it was not because the other side won. Every time Israel lost land is because they just willingly gave it away for the sake of peace.
It's peaceful. As a matter of fact, more than 90% of Israelis in a poll said that they should do more in Gaza. Over 70% of Israelis said that.
Yes, they should. They're right. They should. Thank you for saying that. Most Israelis agree that you should do more in Gaza. I mean, not most. No, it wasn't most. Most. So 70% of Israelis either agree that the war should continue the way it is in Gaza, or they should be doing more. So that's actually the correct number. But they're right. They're right. They're fantastic. They're completely right. Why should they tolerate Hamas? They should continue the war in Gaza until they should have continued until Hamas is no more. Like Hamas' ability to wage war or rule over Gaza is no more.
The poll said that they should do more in Gaza.
Do more. That's how you get peace. That makes them peace loving. Okay, ceasefire gets you more war. If you want long-lasting peace, you actually have to finish the job. So the Israelis who agree with the war in Gaza, that doesn't make them war-loving. That makes them peace-loving. That makes them experienced and knowledgeable enough to know how you get long-lasting peace.
Over 70% of Israelis said that they should actually stop the humanitarian aid in Gaza. But let's talk about.
So look at this. The stopping of humanitarian aid is because the aid was being used by Hamas to get more resources. The aid that was being sent to Gaza by Israel for it to be used by Gazan people for free was Hamas was seizing them and selling it 3 times the price to the Palestinians. So yeah, and once Israel managed to go and defeat Hamas in Gaza and take over, they managed to give all that aid for free to the Palestinians. Here, actually, let me look this up. Look at this. So yeah, actually, let me bear with me. Let me actually show you regarding the aid, how amazing Israel has been when it comes to delivering food and aid to the Palestinians. Let me see. Definitely Hezbollah. Okay, no, not this one. Here, this one. Okay. And I'm gonna also show you a video. Okay, Israel has delivered a substantial amount of aid to Gaza, surpassing international nutritional standards according to recent studies. Let me read this again, okay? Israel has delivered a substantial amount of aid to Gaza, surpassing international nutritional standards according to recent studies. Between January and April 2024, around 14,000 aid trucks transported food into Gaza with an average of 3,211 calories per person per day. This figure exceeds the World Health Organization's recommended daily intake of 2,100 calories in emergency situations. And studies have indicated that the aid includes diverse and essential food groups. There's that. Oh my, it's so amazing how the truth is so different from what people claim. Here, actually, let me show you this video. This is a man in Gaza drinking water and thanking the IDF. So let's watch this. By the way, thank you to Roy for sending me this video. So this is a Gaza man. This is after the IDF came into Gaza and removed Hamas from this area, and they gave the food and water for free without charging people to the Gazan people. So this man recorded himself drinking the water and says, "Thanks to the IDF for giving us water to drink." And he says Hamas, Fatah, and the DFLP dismantled us and didn't let us drink water. And they didn't do anything to us. They made us live in the lowlands and ruined our lives. Thanks to the ITF for bringing us water to drink and food to eat. So guys, remember, even when we had so much evidence for Hamas not letting the food to get to the hands of the Gazans, the food, the water, and the medicine, Hamas was stopped holding them and selling it to the people. Even then, Israel didn't stop sending the aid. Every time they were trying to find a different way, they were insistent on trying to find a way to send the aid. The aid was still getting to Gaza, but they were trying to find a way to get it to the people without Hamas seizing them. But now that Israel's army is in Gaza, now the Gazan people are noticing that they have full access to the aid now instead of Hamas selling it to them. So he's saying thanks to the IDF for bringing us the water to drink and food to eat. Yeah, and also guys, I'm not gonna go all over I already showed you the videos last time. I have so many videos of IDF soldiers lining up and giving the food and the water to the children, to the people in Gaza, and we have the same footage when the IDF wasn't in Gaza, was basically Hamas soldiers guarding the food and guarding the water while people were trying to get to the food. So this is insane. The fact that he's saying that, look at the accusation. So here, the fact that he doesn't, no, not this one here. Oops, made a mistake. Screen share. The fact that he's spreading all this lies while we have the evidence, completely the opposite evidence of every, it just the distance from the truth and reality, the distance from the truth and the lies that these people say is so wide that I sometimes think like they must be living in a parallel universe. Like, it's not just that they are misrepresenting the fact a little bit, they're misrepresenting the fact in a way that is like 180 degrees different from reality, and they say it with so much confidence. And I sometimes get so angry regarding how much misinformation people are believing about Israel. That's why I'm going to do this show, and this stream is going to be a long stream. This stream is just because when I watch these, I think like why is nobody basically dissecting all of these lies and responding to them in the way that they should? That's why I'm doing this stream. That's why this stream is going to be a very long one. But let's continue.
Yeah, I understand the thing. Like, if you gave them a state, it will be rewarding terrorists, right? And we understand, like, I mean, I have to be fair. I know that.
No, so Piers Morgan doesn't understand what's happening here. He's doing a straw man. He's saying why the claim from pro-Israeli people is that we cannot give Palestinians a state because if we do that, we're rewarding terrorists. Look at this. Listen to this.
In Gaza. But let's talk about yeah, I understand the thing. Like, if you gave them a state, it will be rewarding terrorists, right?
Notice how he managed to distract Piers Morgan enough for him not to answer the question. He's like, well, let's talk about this claim that if we give Palestinians a state, we'll be rewarding terrorism. He managed to change the subject long enough for Piers Morgan to forget that he didn't answer the question on whether or not Hamas should stay in power. Did you see that? Did you see how he just managed to completely change the subject and Piers Morgan didn't notice that he did play that trick? He says, let's talk about this. Like, if I was the host of the show, he'll like, no, motherfucker, let's not talk about that yet. Maybe let's talk about you not answering my fucking question. How does he get away with this? Like, Piers, like, what the fuck? You're a professional host. Okay, but let's go to that subject, I guess, if you're going to let him. What is the claim again? He's like rewarding Palestinians, rewarding
I
terrorists.
understand the thing. Like, if you gave them a state, it would be rewarding terrorists, right? And
that's fucking bullshit. He's saying, he's making it seem like the Palestinians were not given a state, because if they were given a state, the argument from the other side is like, no, let's not give them a state because we don't want to reward terrorists. Motherfucker, the other side has been desperately trying to give Palestinians a state. The reason why we have given up on that is because the other side has refused to accept having a state as long as Israel gets to be a state as well. Motherfucker, like, what are you talking about? Palestinians did not accept having a state. Israel was trying to give them a state. Maybe I should have this list. I prepared this list. Every time somebody says like something like this, I should have that handy next to me every fucking time. So yeah, I prepared this list. Okay, so here. 1947 new UN partition plan. Jews accepted a two-state solution, but Arab leaders rejected it, leading to war. So basically, they were like, hey, let's have Palestine be a country and Israel be a country. The Jewish leaders were like, okay, yeah, let's have Palestine as a country and Israel as a country. The Arab states said like, no, fuck that. Let's have war. Okay, so that was 1947. 1949, Israel sought permanent peace, but the Arab nations refused, insisting Israel's existence was illegitimate. So that's number two. Number three, 1967, the post-Six Day War. Israel offered land for peace. Arab League responded with the three no's: no to peace, no recognition, nor negotiations. So that was the third time. Then the fourth time, 1978, the Camp David Accords. Framework for Palestinian self-rule was offered, but rejected by the Palestinians and the broader Arab world. So that was number four. Number five, the 2000 Camp David Summit. Israel offered a state in Gaza and West Bank with East Jerusalem as the capital. Yasser Arafat rejected it without a counter proposal. So that was number five. Number six, 2001, the Taba Summit. Israel offered more concessions, including nearly all West Bank and Gaza, but the Palestinian negotiators walked away. So that was number six. Number seven, 2007. So I keep on saying there was 5 times. Apparently it was 7 times. Okay. 2007, okay. The Annapolis Conference. Israeli Prime Minister offered Abbas almost all West Bank and Gaza, which shared Jerusalem. Abbas stalled and didn't agree. So yeah, the argument is like, oh, why are you not giving Palestinian land? You think you're rewarding terrorists? They tried to. They fucking tried to give them a nation state. They wouldn't accept it because they couldn't accept Israel existing like next to them. So something, why were they rejected? They were rejected. Les is saying why they were rejected. They were rejected because they could not accept Israel being a country as well. They're like, no, we do not accept Palestine being a country as long as Israel gets to be a country. Israel should be wiped off the map. They sacrificed having a nation state for the sake of continuing the war with Israel. They were the ones who wanted war. Anyways, like, oh, you're saying that Palestine shouldn't be a country. No! Palestinians rejected Palestine being a country. Israel only now has given up making Palestine a country because these are not people that you could talk with. These are people who want your destruction and nothing else. So how could I... Guys, think about this. Israel didn't stop, even after all these attempts to make Palestine a country, Israel didn't stop negotiating with Arabs. Israel said, like, okay, I have to go find the right Arabs. These Palestinians, no matter what I do, they will accept nothing but my full destruction. Did Israel stop negotiating with Arabs? They're like, no, let's go maybe talk to the Egyptians and the Jordanians and the Saudi Arabians and the Emiratis, because they have come to the conclusion that Israel needs to be talked to and dealt with and negotiated with and made peace with. So even after all of this, Israel is just going around the Palestinians because the Palestinians cannot be, on average, cannot be reasoned with. They have been brainwashed to the point that they accept nothing but the full destruction of Israel. So how could I deal with these people? Again, so the two-state solution is impossible. Let's continue.
We understand, like, I mean, I have to be fair. And I know that a lot of Arabs will hate.
Oh, wait, we got a super chat. Uriel saying the 1920s Peel Commission, don't forget. Yes, the 1920s Peel Commission, where they were told the Arabs that you could have, I think, 80% was it 90%? I think it was something between 80% or let's say 80%. So even before 1948, the Arabs were offered to have close to 90% of the land and just have 10% for the Jews. They said no to that deal. They're like, no. So guys, remember the disagreements that the Palestinians, the Arabs had was not over the percentage. Even if you wanted to give 5% to Israel and 95% to the Arabs to make Palestine 95% and 5% to the Jews, they said we would reject that as well. There's no, like, absolutely not even 1%. The existence of a Jewish state, they rejected that fully. It wasn't about percentages. Even if you give 1% Jewish state, 99% Arab state, they will refuse that as well. But, and thank you, yeah, Peel, yeah, if you go back to the 1920s, we have a record of them rejecting a 10% divide as well. Let's continue.
Hate me for saying this, but like, yeah, terrorism has been actually going in the Middle East for a very long time. I mean, do you remember the bombing of the King David Hotel? 92 British soldiers.
Oh, look at this. Okay, so look at this part. Okay, so this is interesting.
It would be rewarding terrorists, right? And we understand, like, I mean, I have to be fair. I know that a lot of Arabs would hate me for saying this, but like, yeah, terrorism has been actually going in the Middle East for a very long time. I mean,
so here he seems like he's trying to genuinely be fair, and every time you think he's genuinely trying to be fair, if you let him speak for longer, you see that this man is such an asshole. Like, he cannot even acknowledge that there's terrorism from the Arab side. As soon as you think that he's admitting something, once he continues, you realize he's saying something else. So even for the appearance sakes, he's not going to try to admit wrongdoings from the other side. Look at this. Look at this. Look at the freaking weasel. What he's trying to do here. Look,
Arabs will hate me for saying this, but like, yeah, terrorism has been actually going in the Middle East for a very long time. I mean, do you remember the bombing of the King David Hotel? 92 British soldiers were killed. The bombing of the Cairo Haifa.
These are, guys, these are the examples of the Jewish terrorists or paramilitary groups doing terrorist activities. So he's saying, like, oh, Arabs are going to hate me. Yes, the Middle East is full of terrorists. And now he's giving you a list of terrorist activities before Israel was a state by some terrorist, Jewish terrorist groups to basically show, like, yeah, we have terrorism in the Middle East. We have Jewish terrorism in the Middle East. So even when he's trying to, you think that maybe he would acknowledge some wrongdoings from the other side, no, that's not what he's doing. You see the dishonest motherfucker here? Listen to this.
92 British soldiers for a very long time. I mean, Arabs would hate me for saying this, but like, yeah, terrorism has been actually going in the Middle East for a very long time. I mean, do you remember the bombing of the King David Hotel? 92 British soldiers were killed. The bombing of the Cairo Haifa train, over 200 soldiers, British soldiers killed. The assassination of Volker Bernadotte or Lord Moyen, all done by Israeli Zionist militias. They were
Israeli Zionists. There was no Israel when he was talking. These are, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, these are Jewish terrorist groups before Israel was a country. Okay, yes, there were some Israeli there were some Jewish terrorist groups. Why were they Israeli? This was the pre-existence of like, let me see, for example, the King David Hotel bombing. This was in 1946, so this was before Israel was a country. So how are these people Israeli when we don't have a country named Israel in this 1946. These were Jewish. So, but the 1946 bombing of King David Hotel in Jerusalem was carried out by members of the Irgun, a Jewish paramilitary group that was fighting against British rule in Palestine. Okay, yes, we know that they were terrorists. Are you going to acknowledge that most of the terrorism in the Middle East is done by Islamic terrorist groups? Are you going to acknowledge that? Okay, guys, here, I'm pro-Israel. Were there, before the existence of Israel, were there some Jewish terrorist groups? Yes, I accept that. I acknowledge that. They did exist. So why wouldn't you, are you going to accept that most of the terrorism in the Middle East is done by Islamic terrorist groups? Are you going to say that? What is this with this anecdotal? Oh my God, let me see. And yeah, and these are all of these groups were demolished after they exist. How are you criticizing Israel for certain groups' terrorist activities that existed before Israel was a country? What has this got to do with Israel? Israel wasn't even a country when these terrorist groups were doing these things.
For the terrorists.
Yeah, and I'm saying, and they were in fact terrorists. Yeah, I'm not gonna deny that these were terrorist groups. These were terrorist groups. They were doing terrorist activities. I acknowledge that. I accept that. I'm a Zionist. I'm pro-Israeli, and there were some Jewish terrorist groups. Yes, but would Bassem say that about the look? He doesn't even acknowledge that there are Arab or Islamic terrorist groups. The examples he has of terrorism. Imagine 99% of terrorist activity in the Middle East is from Arab and Islamic terrorist groups, but him points to that 1% that doesn't even exist anymore, that existed before Israel was country. But when he thinks of terrorism in the Middle East, he points to that 1% as representative of terrorism in the Middle East. The level of dishonesty here is through the roof. I don't even know how to deal with this. Unbelievable.
All done by Israeli Zionist militias. They
Israeli? They're not Israeli.
were the terrorists, and they were rewarded of having their own state. So I don't understand the double standard. As a matter of fact, one of the people who
they were, so here's, look at this. Look at the collectivist mindset. He mentions some terrorist groups that did exist before the 1948, before Israel was a country, and he says they were rewarded with having a country. They were rewarded with giving a nation state. So did you just collectively associate all Jews and all Israelis today with being represented by those terrorist groups? Because Israel became a country for all Israelis today, not for those terrorist groups. So he just grouped all the people who are Israeli with the terrorist groups, with the minority. Do you understand how racist he would have considered this to be if we said something like this for the Arab side? Imagine if I blamed all the Arabs for terrorists that are Arab. Okay? Hey, you Arabs have been rewarded with this and that, even though you have terrorists on their side. This is such a collectivist mindset. First, and also, here's the more important part. He says Israelis were rewarded with a country, even though they were terrorists, as if all Israeli were terrorists, not these minority terrorist groups. But guess what, Bassem? When Israelis were gifted with a country, the Arabs were fucking gifted with a country at the same fucking time. Do you understand that? The same declaration, the same UN declaration that made Israel a country, made Palestine a country at the same fucking time, or at least it attempted to. Why were these Jewish terrorists gifted with a country? Motherfucker, the UN declared Israel and Palestine to be a country. It was the Palestinians who rejected it, motherfucker. The Israelis, the Jewish people said, okay. The Arab side said, fuck you. So, oh my God, like, why were Israelis gifted with a country, even though they were terrorists, but the Arab side was not gifted a country, even though they might have some terrorists? Nope. They were both offered a country. They were both offered a country. Listen to this, guys. Now that you heard my context, I have to go back and I want you to listen to what he's saying with the context that I just gave you. Look into this.
Done by Israeli Zionist militias. They were the terrorists.
Okay, so he just finished giving you a list of terrorist activities by Jewish militias, by Jewish terrorist groups, which we acknowledge existed, that was disbanded by Israel after Israel became a country. Okay.
And they were rewarded of having their own state. So I don't understand the double standard. As a matter of fact, one of the people who were in...
So he says, and they were rewarded with their own state. I don't understand the double standard. What double standard? Both sides were offered a country. What double standard? Both sides were offered a country. I mean, the other side was doing many terrorist activities. The other side was doing more terrorist activities. The other side was doing astronomically more terrorist activities, and they were also offered a country. So where's the double standard? Where is the fucking double standard? What's the double standard? When the UN comes and like, here's a country for you. Here's your country. You get to have a country. You get to have a country. Everybody gets to have a country. Look under your seat. There's a country. There's a country under your seat. You get to have a country. They were like, fuck no. Fuck you. They said, fuck you to the UN. Okay, so where's the double standard? Where's the fucking double standard?
These terrorist attack was Isaac Shamir, and he was on a terrorist list, English terrorist list, and he couldn't come to London until he became a prime minister. But to be fair, the Israeli government at the time, 1949, have actually declared the Stern gang as a terrorist group, and they arrested 2 of them. And they gave them very, 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 very severe sentences, 8 and 5 years, and then they were released after a month.
Do you see?
Okay, see, every time he says, let's be fair, he starts by acting like he's going to mention something that is favorable to the other side, but he's lying. He's like joking about being fair. He's being comedic. It's like, but let's be fair. Like, oh, is he actually going to mention something in favor of the other side? But he's not being fair. He starts by saying fair, and then he makes jokes about the other side. Do you see what a fucking disgusting piece of shit he's being? So the idea is the other side did not punish the terrorists that did terrorist activity before Israel was a nation state. Do you understand, when you start a nation state, the laws that you now have established are for after you establish those laws? You cannot go punish people for laws that you have as a nation state for things that they did before the laws were established. That's not how the legal system of a nation state works. Okay, but this was what the other side was doing as well. I mean, the other side, where the UN was making a country, they made their leaders people who were involved in terrorist activities before. I mean, the idea is that what we consider to be a terrorist activity, before these countries were nations, these activities to be anti-imperialism, freedom-fighting activities, right? And again, because, I mean, I still consider them to be terrorist activities, but again, once you establish a nation state, these were activities before your country was a country. So holding people responsible for their actions based on the laws that you have established now is meant to happen after you have a legal system and a law that you just established now as a country. If you want to punish them for international crime, for crimes that is not about your nation state, that is not about the laws that you have now established as your nation state, that is the responsibility of international organization. I, as a country, I'm going to help people responsible after I become a country for the things they do after I establish a law. I mean, I'm surprised they actually even punish them at all, to be honest.
Any blame?
Yeah, somebody's saying, Bomb is saying, bro, you will never get to the end of this video. LOL, this is great. Yeah, I mean, think about this. We've been talking for 2 hours, and I managed to get 12 minutes in. The number of lies is so much. I don't know how much when I'm gonna like. This is an hour, 12-minute video. I don't even know what to do. Like, should I continue? This is going to be a 24-hour stream. Should I, guys? Should I, if I finish the stream, should I continue this? You know, if I stop this, maybe I should. Do you want me to then go to another person, or should I just continue until we? Because the whole stream is full of shit. This whole video, this whole debate is so full of shit that we are basically digging. This is a stream digging up shit, but there's just too much shit on our head. So should I do a multiple live stream? I don't know if I should continue, because I don't know if part 2 would get as much views, because you guys are going to get burned out. You're going to have, it's going to be too much Bassem Youssef. But see how difficult this is, that the bullshit per second rate is so high that I don't know what to do. Let me know. Please continue. Okay.
On your side for any of this going back to 1948?
Yeah.
So listen to the question here.
Sentences 8 and 5 years, and then they were released after a month.
Do you see any blame on your side for any of this going back to 1948?
Yeah.
Genuinely, I mean, I'm not after.
So let's see if he. So I think he's thinking right now. He's trying to find a way to not answer this question. Okay. There are two main methods he has. I don't know which one he's going to use. Is he going to try to change the subject, or is he going to make a joke seeming like he was accepting it, but then at the end of the joke you realize that he's doing something else? These are his two main methods. Let's see which one he's going to go with.
After a satirical response. I mean, genuinely, when you look back at the history of this conflict, I mean, one of the most powerful pieces I've read actually about all this, one that I just thought was very interesting.
No, Piers Morgan should have just let him answer that instead of like continuing. Like you cornered him. You should have let him see if he would respond to that.
There was a Jewish journalist called Jonathan Friedland at The Guardian. And he wrote a column where he said he could make a very powerful argument, both for Israel and for the Palestinians, in which he could present a case that they were the more overriding victim of this whole conflict.
I'm aware of Jonathan Friedland.
Not answering the question. So the question is supposed to be, can you find anything wrong from your side? Anything wrong from the side you're defending? Okay. If you ask me that, I support Israel. I support Zionism. I consider myself a Zionist. If you ask me, Armin, can you find examples of things that are wrong from your side? I could do multiple streams on examples of mistakes and outright crimes by the side that I'm defending. I could do. I have done that. You know, I don't have. This is not theoretical. You've seen me on my streams doing that. Okay. I have lost so much support on this channel because we support Israel and we get so many pro-Israeli people on this channel, and I have lost so many people because I wasn't black and white. I acknowledge some mistakes from the side that I'm defending. It's so easy for me to respond to that. It's so easy. And then, but look at this. I mean, Piers Morgan just gave him a way out. He was being cornered. Can you accept some mistakes from your side? I mean, maybe he will give him an example at some point. Let's keep our minds open, right? But now, instead of doing that, he's talking about this individual that Piers Morgan just quoted. Look at this.
Overriding victim of this whole conflict.
I'm aware of Jonathan Friedland.
What's your view of him?
Well, everybody knows he's a liberal Zionist.
Why, Piers Morgan? Why are you asking him? What's your view of him? Why are you letting him not answer your original question? Look at Piers Morgan. Like, what's your view of him? Piers, why are you so easily distracted? Piers are like, squirrel. Why are you so easily distracted? What is your view of him? Stick to your original question. Unbelievable.
What's your view of being victim of this whole conflict?
I'm aware of Jonathan Friedland.
What's your view of him?
Well, everybody knows he's a liberal Zionist. He's one of the most outspoken people in defending Israel. But
he wasn't. But my point was, he said that he could construct a case for Palestinians to have a.
Okay, Piers Morgan just realized that they were getting off track. Okay, good.
But my point was, he said that he could construct a case for Palestinians to have a genuine right to feel aggrieved.
You know what else?
Can you do the same
You know
the
what,
other way?
You know what?
Oh, okay. Back on track. Let's bring it back. Okay, let's see if we can get
Else he said? He said,
oh my God, he's not gonna answer that. He's like, you know what? Look at the way he does it. You know what else he said? You look at me how easily I'm maneuvering around your questions without answering them. You know what else he said? Look at his attitude. Look at the way he dodges the question.
For Palestinians to have a genuine right to feel aggrieved.
You know what else?
Can you do the same
You know
the
what,
other way?
You know what else he said?
Look, he's just not going to answer.
He said, Israel has a very difficult choice of if they continue doing it in Gaza or not doing it in Gaza. All we can do is just acknowledge it and see it. And this is very privileged because he can do it because he's on the stronger side. And this is the thing. It's like, oh, we can acknowledge it, we see it. It's so bad. We're killing civilians. But God, what we can do? And then we raise our hands at the end. And so like, it's too bad. It's inevitable. War is so bad. It's bad. But
yeah, it's inevitable. It is. He's right. If the other person attacks you and you have to defend yourself, what else can you do? It is inevitable. What are you supposed to do? Just let them roll? Just come and crush you? Like what the hell? Yeah, you have to respond.
To your point, yeah, I think the Palestinians had done.
Oh, okay. He's gonna answer. Thank you. Okay, guys, if he answers, I'm going to be fair. If he actually answers and acknowledges one mistake from his side, I'm not going to be, black and white. I'm gonna be like, okay, he actually gave us a good answer, and we will acknowledge.
It's bad. But to your point, yeah, I think the Palestinians had done a grave mistake for not accepting the settlement that they were given by the UN partition. I mean,
okay, so he seems like, let's see, is this the second method? Remember, I gave you two methods. Either he will change the subject, which he originally did, or he will basically move his paper around to try to find a joke where he starts like he seems like he's admitting something, and then he ends it with us realizing that he's not admitting anything at all. You saw that he did that originally with like, yes, I have to admit, maybe I will make Arabs angry. There were acts of terrorism, and then the examples he gave were actually Jewish terrorists. I feel like when he was shoveling the papers, he was trying to find a way to come up with a joke, to start with acting like he's going to admit something and then not doing it. So let's see if that's going to happen.
That's bad.
So let's see.
It's bad. But to your point, yeah, I think the Palestinians had done a grave mistake for not accepting the settlement that they were given by the UN partition.
So that's true. That is true. If he ends it right here, I will accept that. That Bassem just finally genuinely criticized his side. If the Arabs accepted the partition, they would have been so much better off right now, right? Let's see if he's going to. By the way, guys, Bassem is not Islamic, so I don't. His idiocy is of a leftist kind. So stop calling him an Islamic idiot. He's not an Islamic idiot. He's more of a Western progressive leftist idiot. Okay, so if you keep acting like because he's Arab, he's a Islamic idiot, you're misunderstanding where he's getting his narrative is not Islamic. His narrative is wokey, progressive, lefty nonsense. But again, listen to this.
The Palestinians had done a grave mistake for not accepting the settlement that they were given by the UN partition. I mean, they were given 47% of their land. And I mean, let's go back. The bill for the...
Ding, 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 ding. Guys, it's the second one. It was the second one. See? Called it. I called. See? You see? So the question was, do you find anything wrong? Any one single thing that your side did wrong? And it just seemed for a fucking second that he was like, yes, here's one thing. Here's a criticism. If they have accepted the 1948 deal by the UN for Palestine to be a country and Israel to be a country, they would have been so much better off. And that is a legit criticism. The Palestinians today would be living at peace and prosperity and stability, at least to the level of, I don't know, Jordan and Egypt by now. At least they wouldn't have war if they accepted the 1948 plan. That was a fair criticism, but that's not his criticism. He's joking. He's making a joke. He's making a joke. He's like, oh, they should have accepted getting 46% of their land. Unfucking believable. So you have zero. So you have zero criticism for your side. Your side does nothing wrong. You don't, even the examples you have are joke examples. Unbelievable.
Partition. I mean, they were given 47% of their land.
Like, look how he's laughing. Like, oh, they should have accepted such a bad fucking. So if you guys don't understand what the joke is, he's saying that this criticism I'm making of my side is not actually a criticism because they were right not to accept the deal. Because look at his laugh. He's like, oh yeah, the Arabs so unrealistic for not accepting 47% of their land. Meaning, basically what he's saying is 100% of this land was for the Arabs, and it's a joke for us to criticize the Arabs not accepting a deal that gives them 47% of their land. So he started by acting like he has a criticism, but now he's making fun of that criticism, saying that this is not a fair criticism. So basically, you avoided the exact two methods that I told you. The exact two methods told you. He either attempts to change the subject, or he seems like when he's cornered, he accepts that he's wrong, or he accepts that he accepts a point that is being made from the other side, but he just gets out of it with a joke. Gets out of it with a joke. And I don't know if Piers is recognizing what's happening here.
I mean, they were given 47% of their land.
So if this is not a fair criticism, then you didn't answer the question. Bassem, if the Arabs not accepting the 1948 deal is not a fair criticism of Arabs, okay, I don't agree with you, but let's agree with you for hypothetically, let's say you're right. But the question was, what is a fair criticism on your side? Can you give us an example that you will agree with as a criticism on your side? Are you basically saying that you have zero? Unbelievable. So you just didn't answer the question.
And
just to be clear, by the way, the reason why he's full of shit right now is that the Arabs were given 40%. That was not their land. Remember, he's saying like that was such a bad deal for them to get 47% of their land, given that that whole place was supposed to be for Arabs. That's fucking bullshit. That's fucking bullshit. We have two different rights that we're talking about here. And these idiots, the pro-Palestinian sides, confuses these two. We have the right to govern, and we have the personal property rights, the right to own land individually. Okay? So the whole Israel and Palestine region, when it comes to the entirety of the place, the right to govern that area did not belong to the Arabs in that place, did not belong to the Jews in that place. The right to govern that entire area belonged to the Ottoman fucking Empire. So when the Ottoman Empire collapsed, there was no entity. So the British came and took the governing responsibility, but the Arabs and the Jews in that region did not own the right to govern over that land. It was for the Ottoman Empire, and now it did not exist for anybody. There were lands that no one was settling on. So there is two types of land. The lands like houses or farms or gardens that were owned by individuals, and that was the minority of the land. When the Jews took over that land before the 1948 war started by the Arabs, if any Jews came to own a property that was privately owned by an Arab, they purchased it with money. All the other settlement area were areas that were not settled by anybody. They were empty fucking land. The Arabs didn't own that fucking land. The Arabs owned the parts that the houses and the farms that were their private property. The entire area was not owned by Arabs. These were empty empty areas not settled by anybody. You're mixing the right to govern with the right to private ownership together. These are two different concepts. So most of the lands that the Jews settled on when they came to this area was not owned by any individual, and nobody even bothered to own them because they were deemed useless. There were swamps and deserts, and there were lands that were considered not to be good for farming or anything like that, but Jews somehow made it work, right? So when you say 47% of their land, that's a misrepresentation. This was land not owned by any individual, not settled, not worked on, nothing. And they came and settled over there. Unless the land that they took from Arabs by purchasing it, that's only 5% of the lands that the Jews settled on that was owned previously by an Arab. 95% of the settlement was in areas that nobody was living in, empty land not owned by anybody except the Ottoman Empire, which no longer existed at that point in time. Yes, it was either places that you could not do farming in, or it was deserts. It was either deserts or malaria-ridden swamps. Basically, that was the two types of land that the Jews came in and settled in. Yeah, and also when the Israelis when the UN gave the Jews 53% of the land, it gave the Jews 53% of the worst land. The best land was given to the Arabs. Yeah.
I mean, let's go back. The Balfour Declaration was 1917. At the time, there was 60,000 Jewish people living in a 700,000 population, which makes them 8%. That number jumped from 8% to 30%. After the Second World War and the Holocaust. Now,
yeah, because they were being attacked everywhere in the world. Like, oh, that population jumped from 8% to what percent? Like, okay, for good reason.
To 30%.
Yeah, jumped from 8. You're like, oh wow, that number jumped from 88% to 30% after the fucking Holocaust. Yeah, because there was a fucking Holocaust
after the Second World War and the Holocaust. Now,
yeah, so. For good reason, because the whole world was anti-Jewish.
Imagine yourself being a Palestinian, you're having all of these refugees coming to you, and then they're forming gangs and stealing your land and killing you. And
fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. The killings, oh my God. The Jews were coming to areas where Arabs had no fucking properties. They weren't killing you. The Arabs were killing Jews before Jewish people were even coming there. They weren't. Oh my fucking God! There's so much misinformation in this 3 seconds. I don't even know where to start. Okay, so let me start by this. There is zero fucking examples. There's zero, absolutely zero fucking examples of Jews taking privately owned land by Arabs by force before 1948, before Arabs decided to unite with each other and declare a war in Israel. Not a single privately owned land by Arabs was taken by Jews. However, I have shit ton of examples of Arabs forcing Jews out of their land and taking their land by force before Israel was even a fucking country. Years before Jews were even coming to this region. I'm talking about Jews that were Middle Eastern that lived there, not Jews that were coming from Europe. Jews that owned private land in what we consider Palestine and Israel today. I have a shit ton of examples of their land being taken away by force. I'm talking about mothers and children being killed and their lands being taken over. What are you talking about? When the Jews were coming to, first of all, half of the Jews that came to Israel were from Middle Eastern countries, forced away by their Islamic leaders because of the anti-Jewish. They were being hunted down and they ran away from the Middle. So please realize that all of the Jews in Israel come from Europe. Half of them come from the Middle East. Many of them lived there, and many of them came from Europe. The ones that came from either Europe or other places in the Middle East, they settled in places not owned by any Arabs. Okay, but let me actually give you examples. I challenge you guys, go find me examples before the Arab countries decided to declare war on this newly tiny Jewish state. Find me examples of Jews coming in and forcefully taking privately owned Arab land. I'm not talking about that entire region declared privately owned by Arabs. I'm talking about actual places that Arabs privately own individually. Show me examples of Jews coming in and taking that by force, because I have another example. Hold on. Let me see. I have an example for you. Yeah, I collect these lists because the level of misinformation is so much that I'm forced to collect these lists for people. Not this one. This list. I have so many lists. If I could find this one, that would be so good. Oh my gosh. I am doing a Google Doc regarding all the misinformation about Israel so that I always have access to it. Okay. So here. Ooh, this is. Give me a second. Okay. Let me see. Okay, so here's my list. In 18, so this is a working list. I'm just going to give you a couple of examples from it. Okay, in 1888, Jews bought land in the Golan Heights, in the area that I cannot pronounce. Okay, and I'm going to pronounce these Jewish names. The Arabs killed the last Jewish family there in 1920 and took over the land. So these are Jews that had land in Golan Heights that they bought in 1888. We're talking 1888. And so in 1920, before we had these Jews coming to Israel, before Israel was a country, the Arabs killed the last remaining Jewish family that owned that land and took over their land. And I'm talking about the land that these Jews had bought and owned privately. In 1929, Arabs attacked Jews in Gaza. Again, 1929, before Israel was a country, before we had this mass migration of Jews and blah, 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 okay? And Arabs attacked Jews in Gaza, and the British evacuated the Jewish population, and the Arabs then took over Jewish property. Again, these were property, these are houses and property that were owned individually. I'm not talking an entire land that was declared for the Jews or Arabs, right? In Hebron, let me see this Hebron example. What year is this? This is 1929. Okay. In Hebron, Arabs not only stole Jewish property, but also murdered dozens of Jews in brutal ways. In 1882, Jews from Yemen bought, so look, 1882, these were lands that were owned by Jews since 1882. This is way before. I'm not, guys, please pay attention. I'm not saying 19, I'm saying 1882. Jews from Yemen bought land in, again, I can't pronounce this place. So in Silwan. And in 1938, again, before Israel was a country, during the Arab revolt, the last Jew was murdered and Arabs took over the property. Guys, if I go, I could keep giving you a list of these things forever. But if I go over the details of what happened, it's insane. Like, I have an example of a farm with a mother and her children being the last remaining people of that Jewish family. The father, I think she was a widow, the father had died. And the Arabs, realizing that this family was defenseless, they came and killed the mother and the children, and they took over the land. So before Israel was a country, I have a huge list of lands being stolen from the Jews by Arabs in that region. You don't find a single example the other way around. You don't find a single example the other way around. Every land that was taken from the Arabs that was owned privately was after 1948, after the Arabs started attacking Israel, and the Arabs leaving the area because there was war in that region, and then eventually the Jews taking over land that the Arabs evacuated, which was started by the attack on Israel by the Arab countries. you won't find a single example of private property being stolen by Jews before 1948. So this is fucking bullshit. This is bullshit.
And then you
If there is an example, show me. I will accept it. I will accept
having
it.
all of these refugees coming to you, and then they're forming gangs and stealing your land and killing you, and then
Forming gangs and stealing your land. There was no stealing of property. There was no stealing of property. There were Jews that were in that region. There were Zionists that were trying to start a nation state. The Arabs in that region, they didn't want a nation state, Jewish nation state being built next to them, even though they were building the nation state in areas where there were no one there. It would have, if they were not racist or have this Islamic beliefs, it was either racism, pan-Arab racism, or Islamic anti-Jewish sentiments that convinced them that they should not accept a Jewish state right next to them. But given that there was so much empty land that the Jews could start a country, if the Arabs in that time were not this anti-Jewish, they would have benefited for having a prosperous Jewish nation state being built right next to them, because they were not using the land. They were not using the land. They were just letting it go to waste. It was empty land, and the Jews came and they turned deserts into productive land. And if the Arabs could have just accepted them being their neighbors, it would have been brought so much prosperity, so much trade, so much business, and it would have been a win-win for both sides. Yeah, so D is saying there were Arabs who sold land to Jews in the 30s. Yes, every private property by Arabs that was taken over by Jews, it was because they were sold to them. And even some Arabs, because they were told not to sell land to the Jews, they sold the lands to, I remember, there were cases of Arabs wanting to sell their land to Jews, but they used the Baha'is as intermediary because they didn't want it was taboo to sell land to the Jews. So some Arabs back then, when the Jews were coming in and buying land from Arabs, they sold the lands to Baha'is, and then the Baha'is sold the land to the Jews, so that the Arab was not directly selling the land to the Jews.
And the UN said, like, I know what we can do. I'm going to give the people who just arrived 30 years ago 53 of the land, and I'm going to give the people who are already there, who form 70%, 47%.
But they're also, so I would say to
the 47% was more than the lands that they were settling in, right? So you're saying the people who were there, those people were not there. Those people were not living in the fucking swamps. Those people were not in the middle of the fucking desert. The 53% that was given to the Jews were the lands that was being settled by no one. That was empty fucking land. The 47% that was given to the Arabs were all the lands that they were basically already living in and settling, and more. They were given more than the land that they needed for all the Arabs that were already there, and they were given the best land, the best land, the land that had the farms in, the land that you could actually do agriculture in. They weren't given the deserts. They weren't given the unarable land. They weren't given the swamps. So why didn't you mention that? What's the point of? I mean, what's the point of those empty lands being left empty? I don't understand it. Why are they so upset about land that they're not using, that they didn't own? Why would here, guys? If I'm an Arab, okay, let's say for example that as an individual, let's say in the area that we call Palestine and Israel right now, let's say before 1948, there is a farm that I own. I privately own this land. It was given to me by my father and his father before him and his father before him, and this farm has been in my land, and I'm working this land. I have a house in this farm, and this is my farm, and I'm working this farm, and me and my family own this farm. Okay, fine, this is yours. Why? Because I live here, all of a sudden I fucking own that desert land over there as well. Property rights don't work like that. No, why do I own the fucking desert over there? I own this fucking farm. The property rights means this is mine. Just because that area is the area that my farms are like close to the area that I own some lands on, that doesn't make the fucking desert mine as well. So Guys, for example, where do you live? Let's say, for example, you live in the US. You own a house. Do you own the deserts a couple of kilometers next to your house because you own that house as well? You don't own that house. You could say that desert belongs to the governing rights of that desert, belongs to the United States government, but you as an individual, you don't own that fucking desert because you have a house a couple of kilometers away from that desert. Do you understand how this works? That desert does not belong to you. The governing right of that desert belongs to your government, sure, but you don't have any rights to that desert individually. So if United States goes away as the government, you are not entitled to that desert anymore. You don't have that. This is so easy.
There are also hundreds of thousands of Jewish people who were displaced from their homes in Arab countries. So was that wrong?
Well, I advise that you read Avi Shleim, who is a Jewish Iraqi.
Why are you not answering it? Okay, so remember, he didn't answer the previous question. Now there's a new question. Put your bets in. Put your bets in. What are the chances of him answering this question? Let me see. Actually, do we have super chats? Oh, we have a lot of super chats. After this part, I will read the super chats. By the way, guys, I'm trying to see if we could get 20 super chats per stream. So far, we have gotten 8. Let's see if we could get to 20. Okay, I put in a goal. If we reach to 20 super chats on this stream, the goal is I will do a Q&A stream, an extra Q&A stream answering your question. So right now we reached 9. So let's see if we're going to reach 20. We only have another 40 minutes to reach 20 super chats. So let's see if we're going to get there. But I will read the super chat. So here's a new question for Bassem. He's going to say, was kicking the Jews out of Islamic countries, was that wrong? So we have the displacement of Arabs, which was actually done because the Arab leaders of Arab countries attack Israel. But now we're asking Bassem, if the displacement of Jewish people, would he condemn that? What are the chances of him answering this fucking simple question? Okay, I think the odds are low. We'll see. Oh, guys, we reached halfway. We got a 10 super chats, so we're 10 out of 20. Let's see if we could get to 20.
47%.
But there are also, so I would say to you, there are also hundreds of thousands of Jewish people who were displaced from their homes in Arab countries. So was that wrong?
Well, I advise that you read Avi Shleim, who is a Jewish Iraqi, and he also, I think he's also British. That's not the timeline. The timeline was...
It is true, though.
Yeah, but that's not the timeline. The timeline is important. The timeline was the Zionist gangs, they were killed, they raped, they stole land, and then they basically evicted the people out of their land, and overnight 750,000 Palestinians.
Wait, first of all, what he's saying, he's misrepresenting the timeline. But even if his timeline was true, we're talking about the evictions of Jews from, isn't that the question?
Was this timeline? That's a Jewish Iraqi, and he also, I think...
Thousands of Jewish people who would, I would say to you, there are also hundreds of thousands of Jewish people who were displaced from their homes in Arab countries.
So the question is specifically about Jews that were kicked out of their homes in Arab countries. We're talking Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Yemen. And he says that timeline is not true. And even though his timeline is false, it's not relevant because he's giving the timeline specific to what was happening in Israel. But we're not even talking about what happened in Israel. We're talking about the Jews that were kicked out of their homes and their property being taken over in Arab countries. So, for example, in Iraq, for example. So his timeline, even if it's true, how is that relevant to what was happening in Iraq?
So was that wrong?
Wait, guys, am I missing something? Because if I'm getting this right, Bassem is absolutely insane. Like what?
Well, I advise that you read Avi Shleim, who is a Jewish Iraqi, and he also, I think he's also British.
That's not the timeline. The timeline was...
It is true, though.
Yeah, but that's not the timeline. The timeline is important. The timeline was the Zionist gangs, they were killed, they raped, they stole land, and then...
The Zionists, okay, first of all, the Zionist gangs did not steal land. They did do some terrorist attacks, okay? But they did not steal any land. However, you're talking about the terrorist groups in Palestine and Israel, today's Palestine and Israel. But that was not the question. The question was about Jews being kicked out of their homes in Arab countries like in Iraq and Syria. Guys, am I missing something here? Is he insane? Like, am I missing something here?
They basically evicted the people out of their land, and overnight 700...
They evicted people out of their land. The Zionist gangs were not in fucking Arab countries kicking the people out. The people were being kicked out in Iraq and Syria and Yemen by the Arab leaders, by Arabs and Muslims there.
50,000 Palestinians was displaced overnight. Over the few years, of course, now Israel is now the enemy, and there was a lot of rise of nationalism. And
yeah, what the fuck, guys? Like, am I missing something here? Why did we switch the topic? He didn't, like, why is Piers not stopping him? Piers like, well, listen, I'm not even talking about what's happened in Israel. I'm talking about what happened in Arab countries. Why is he not stopping him then? Like, did he not understand the question? Does he even know that hundreds of thousands of Jews were kicked out of their homes and their properties taken from in Arab countries? Does he know that?
And yes, in some countries that happened. But like,
was that wrong? Is my point.
Of course, but like, it is not the whole thing.
What I'm trying to do, and I'm not trying to...
Oh my God. Okay, so wait. So finally, we got some acknowledgement, and we get it in such a fucking... Of course. Okay, so this is the best we could get. But, and there's always a but.
But like,
was that wrong? Is my point.
Of course, but like, it is not the whole thing.
What I'm trying to do, and I'm...
Okay, well, I'll take it. Okay, guys, I'm so desperate for some acknowledgement, even though that was such a insincere, weaselly way of acknowledging some mistake. Our standards are so low that we have to actually accept that as some acknowledgement, even though it was hidden behind a lot of whataboutism, a lot of excuses, a lot of changing the topic. Okay, and also a lot of buts right after. We got an of course. Oh, guys, Bassem says of course to kicking out Jews out of their homes and taking out their properties in the hundreds of thousands. He had to be forced to the point for him to acknowledge this. Like, this is the most that you could get. Fantastic. Like, of course, but it's not the whole thing. Wow, good job, Bassem. Yes, exactly. Fine. Like, we got basically half a second of acknowledgement, but sandwiched between a lot of whataboutism and misinformation and misdirection, and then half a second of acknowledgement of mistakes against the Jews, and then followed immediately by a but. Fantastic.
I'm not trying to trap you or trick you.
No,
I'm just trying to get you to concede that in a period since 1948.
Oh, by the way, we should do the timeline, given that he says that that's not the fucking timeline. Okay. Well, what is the timeline? Let me see. Let's go look at the timeline. I have a timeline here. Hold on. Okay. I have all of this collected, guys. Okay, so we had in 1917, the Balfour Declaration by British endorses a Jewish homeland in Palestine, leading to increased Jewish immigration and tension between Jews and Arabs in the region. From 1920 to 1940s, tension grew as both Jewish and Arab population in British mandated Palestine seek political power, resulting in clashes and growing hostilities. So In 1947 and 1948, then November 29, 1947, the United Nations proposes a partition plan, UN Resolution 181, dividing British Mandate Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states, with Jerusalem as an international zone. The Jewish leadership accepts this proposal, but Arab leaders and neighboring Arab countries reject it, refusing to recognize a Jewish state. In December 1947 till May 1948, violence escalates as Arabs and Jews prepare for the impending end of the British Mandate. Skirmishes and attacks occur on both sides, with Jewish and Arab militias clashing. In 1948, they established, so May 14, 1948, Israel declares independence as the British Mandate ends. Israel declaration includes calls for peace with Israel's declaration includes calls for peace with neighboring states and for Arabs within Israel to remain as equal citizens. May 15, 1948, the day after Israel's declaration, neighboring Arab countries, Egypt, Jordan, Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon, launch an invasion, rejecting Israel's existence as aiming to eliminate the new state. This marks the beginning of the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. So as you can see, that's the timeline. So before, when the Jews were coming to these lands, there were tensions between Arabs and Jews, which is weird because the Jews were coming to unsettled land, settled by no one. The reason why we had the tensions increasing was because the Arabs were not going to accept Jews having a state here, even if it meant no taking of property by them. So remember, if the Arabs didn't attack the Jews in 1948, all the privately held owned lands by Arabs will be kept by them, and they will just be a Jewish state in the areas where they were not occupying themselves, right? So in 1948, Israel once becomes a country, tells the Arab states, let's have peace and live side by side, and all the Arabs that are remaining in Israel get to be equal Israeli citizens. And accept Palestine as a country, accept Israel as a country. And the Arab leaders said, no, fuck you, and we want war. And that's what brought the displacement. When you say 750,000 Arabs being displaced, they were not going to be displaced. They were displaced because the Arabs attacked the Jewish state, so the Arabs left the war zone. The Arabs were encouraged by the Arab states to leave. That's what caused the displacement. There would have been no displacement if the Arabs did exactly what the Jews did by accepting these two countries to live side by side. So let's continue. So it's like, oh, that's not the timeline. Well, I just gave you the timeline. That's the timeline.
There have been things on both sides. I'm not trying to equivocate either.
So remember, so far he has given nothing except, of course, for acknowledging any blames on his side.
Trying to get you to, I understand completely everything you've said and are going to say about Israel, and you're very implacable about it.
Why is it so hard for you to come up of your own examples for wrong things on your own side? Like, why is it so hard? Like, it should be easy. Like, are you acting like your side is like pure?
That you have every right to be, so I get that. But can you find criticism of your own?
Oh, before he's gonna try to ask him this question again. We have some super chat. Let me address the super chats. Guys, can we get to 20? Maybe next time I should put the goal at 15 super chats. So right now we have, let me answer. So Uriel is saying the Arabs were already gifted a country, Transjordan, yes, and the Hashemites, yes. Okay, so Jordan was technically a country for Palestinians. Jordan was given they turned Jordan into a new country, and that was for Palestinians. Like, Jordanians were Palestinians. So it's just like it was never enough. So like, oh, why can't Arabs be given a state? The Arabs were being given 2 states. I mean, the Palestinians, the so-called Palestinians, Jordan became a country for Palestinians, and they were getting a second one, and they were being offered a second one as well. They rejected that as well. So like, we have like 20 23 Arab countries. Can we have like one for Jews here? Like, nope. We want every fucking thing. And look how ungrateful they were being, because the Arabs in that time, they didn't have a country before. They were part of an empire ruled from so miles away. They're like, oh, this is ours. Well, motherfucker, you never had a country. You used to be a part of empire. This is your chance to have not one, but two countries where you get to control yourself and moderate it yourself. This is fantastic. Like, oh yeah, this is fantastic, but only if the Jews don't get a country. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Okay, so Uriel also pointing out with another super chat that Transjordan is gifted to the Arabs. Yes, that was gifted to the Arabs. Like, you're like, hey, let's make this a country. I mean, the British technically came and saved you from being a part of an empire and gave you your. Yeah, you should be thanking the British. The British was like, hey, we just took down the empire that was ruling over you, and we're introducing you to this concept, this Western liberal invention called a nation state, and now you guys love it so much that you want the right to self-determination instead of being part of empire. You're now obsessed with it so much that you're killing the British for it, even though you wouldn't even know what the fucking nation state is if it wasn't for the Westerners. Like, oh my God, thank you, Westerners. This idea of having a nation state is fantastic. And now we're going to kill as many of you as possible to get it. Okay, so this is a foreign concept to you, and now you have Arab nationalism to the point that they're blaming the British for drawing the borders wrong. You wouldn't even have you wouldn't even have a nation state if the Westerners didn't introduce you to this idea. Okay, so fine, they drew the borders wrong, but you have a country because they gifted it to you to begin with, or else you would just be an unimportant part of a larger empire that doesn't even give a shit about you. Far away, you've been given the chance to have your own politicians, local politicians, determining your own destiny locally. That's what is being given to you. You should be thanking the British for taking over, for destroying your imperial overlords. But you're like, yeah, but your anti-Jewish racism was so strong that this gift that was being given to you, you were not going to accept it if they get to have a state. Like, what the fuck? This is so insane. Okay, so let's go to Gasian American with the $2 super chat. And when should Palestinians get voting rights in one state? That's a very strange question. How how could you know what's going to happen in the future, right? If we go for a one state solution, you should. When should it be? When they become citizens. Okay, so let me see. Like, we're talking about things so far in the future that we don't even know if it's possible yet. This is such an ideal scenario that we're just only dreaming about right now. Okay, so when should Palestinians get voting rights in a one-state solution? First of all, they wouldn't be Palestinian if they get voting rights. They would be Israelis. So when they stop being Palestinians, basically, when we get to the point where the Palestinians are de-radicalized enough, we're talking about so many years in the future, multiple generations later, when we have Palestinians that want to be Israeli citizens, that are de-radicalized, do have hope for the future, do want to live normal lives, have proven to have no hostility with Israel, they will go in those specific individuals can be put in a program where eventually they will become Israeli citizens. And once they become citizens, they should have equal rights to all other Israelis and be given equal rights, including voting rights. Euro is saying, and the Jews in other Arab lands, stolen land. Yes. Yes, exactly. Those are yeah, exactly. So we have many examples in Israel and Palestine today of Arabs stealing Jewish land, privately owned Jewish land, by force before Israel was even a country. But if you want to go out of this region, if you want to go to Iraq, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Egypt, Yemen, then the numbers of lands and property being stolen by Arabs, it becomes astronomical. Like, I was only focusing on lands and property being stolen by Arabs from Jews in what we consider Palestine and Israel today. Even then, even if you focus only then, I have so many examples of land and property being stolen with 0 examples from the other side. If you want to expand this to the whole region, then it's just too many to count. Just thank you so much for the $1 sticker. I appreciate that. And Ehya saying, thank you, Armin. Such destructive lies by Bassem Youssef, and people believe this man. Exactly. So, oh, we got another super chat. So, guys, we're at super chat number 11 now. So we're 9 short. Saying, hi, Armin. My grandmother's family immigrated to Silwan from Yemen in 1881. Oh, guys, that was one of the examples I mentioned. One of those examples that were stolen by force, by violence, by Arabs after. Well, what happened? Oh, that's one of those examples. That's very interesting. Thank you so much for your support from Israel. Sorry, I can't read your name because it's in Hebrew. Anyways, let's continue. Let's continue
in this argument, going back to 48, proper criticism, where if things have been done differently, perhaps we wouldn't be where we are.
Okay, so
he's giving Bassem Youssef another attempt. I think this is the 4th attempt, asking him a question. Can you give me a criticism, an honest criticism, not a joke, of from your side? I'm impressed with Piers insisting on trying to get an answer from him. Okay, so he's not letting him go, so that's good. So let's see if we're going to get an answer here.
If you are British and you had 1 million Ukrainians arriving,
so Bassem, no, we don't want you to give us examples of criticisms that you think it's not fair criticism. We want examples of criticism that you yourself think is a fair criticism. Here's what he's going to do. He's going to give you another example of a criticism that he doesn't think is fair. But that's not the fucking question. That is not the goddamn fucking question. Let me see. Is this what he's going to do? Is he going to give you another example of criticism that he thinks is not fair?
We wouldn't be where we are.
Okay, so if you are British and you had 1 million Ukrainians arriving to your home, and then over 30 years, that number increased to 30% of the population, and then the UN gave you less than half of your country, wouldn't you fight? Wouldn't you resist?
So that's not the fucking question. Oh my fucking God. This is so annoying. It's like, wouldn't you fight if your land was taken away? So by the way, if he says that he would fight, that means that he's accepting Hamas's and terrorism as legit. Like the terrorist activities ever since 1948, he considers that to be legit form of resistance movement. Okay, so that's what he means. But what the fuck is this got to do with the fucking question? He's like, hey, if my land was taken away, I would fight as well. So the fighting of the Palestinians is legitimate. Motherfucker, can you criticize the other side? Can you fucking criticize the other side?
Population, and then the UN gave you less than half of your country, wouldn't you fight? Wouldn't you resist? But now it's our
That wasn't my question.
What was your?
Oh my God! Thank you, mwah, 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 mwah. Piers. That finally, Piers. Like, that was not my fucking question. Thank you.
Question.
Whether you can.
Look at this.
But now it's our.
That wasn't my question.
What was your question?
Whether you.
You know why he says? You know why Bassem says, "What was your question?" Because he's not listening to the questions. He has these lines that he has memorized, and he says, regardless of what the other side is saying, I have to get through these points. And he's like, well, what was your question? Maybe fucking listen to the fucking question so you know the question. Oh my God.
But now it's our.
That wasn't my question.
What was your question?
Whether you can find anything to criticize since 1948.
Give me something to criticize.
No,
there's a lot.
He's asking you to fucking give me something to criticize. So you have no criticism for your side? Why? He's asking you to criticize.
You know the history better than anyone.
There is a lot to criticize. Of course, there's a lot of mistakes. I mean, the Middle East has been.
Give an example. Give an example for your side. Give a fucking example. I said something in Persian. So it says, there's so many examples. Guys, whenever I get so emotional, I sometimes speak Persian instead of English, right? I was saying he said, instead of saying he said, I said Miguel. That's when you know I'm losing it. When you see me speaking Persian without noticing, That's because I'm losing control over my emotions.
There is a lot to criticize. Of course, there's a lot of mistakes. I mean, the Middle East has been plagued by a lot of the military dictatorship, of course. I mean, but having mistakes we should not be penalized by having our land taken away from us just because
Dude, give them the example.
the other side is stronger, right? Because what are you telling your kids? If you're strong and you have enough arms and weapons, you can take whatever land you want. That's not why the UN was formed. That's not why the security.
They didn't take anyone's land. It was empty fucking land. It was empty fucking land. Guys, repeat after me. It was empty fucking land. It was empty land. Nobody owned those fucking land. It wasn't theirs. The Arab that owned land, the land that they owned, it was there. Okay, the land that they owned was there. This land here was owned by no one. It was owned by fucking coyotes and birds and malaria flies and fucking rocks in the middle of fucking nowhere. It wasn't their fucking land.
Enough arms and weapons, you can take whatever land you want. That's not why the UN was formed. That's not why the
But that's not the question. Criticize your side.
Security Council was formed.
When you heard that Sinnoh, the Hamas leader, had been
What Piers, you should have continued insisting for him to give you an example of a fair criticism.
killed, what were your feelings about that?
Well, when I heard
Oh, okay. So now, we changed the topic.
Heard that Sinnoh, the Hamas leader, had been killed. What were your feelings about that?
Well, when I heard he was killed, of course, like, I mean, it was this is something that was actually, I said, like, oh, wow, that's actually, he survived all of that. But I think it was.
What? Did you understand what he's saying? So he's saying, what was your feeling when Sinnoh is a fucking terrorist, okay? Sinnoh was the mastermind behind October 7th attack. We have a direct question here. What was your feeling when he died?
I heard he was killed, of course, like, I mean, it was this is something that was actually, I said, like, oh, wow, that's actually, he survived all of that. But
was something like actually, oh, wow? Is that what he said? I don't know what he said.
I think it was a huge mistake by the Israelis to release the footage because now he's
he didn't answer the question. He said, I felt, oh, wow. I don't know what that means, okay? Everybody was, oh, wow. Were you, like, he didn't, so he's now changing the subject to Israel made a mistake by releasing the footage. Was that the fucking question? Okay, why should people even talk? Why do even people talk to you? You never answer the question.
He's an icon, right? A huge mistake by the Israelis to release the footage because now he's an icon, right?
Okay, so the question was, what was your feeling when Sinnoh was dead? Instead of answering that, he answered. He said, I said, oh, wow. Okay, that's not answering the question. But instead of answering the question, he says, Israel made a mistake by releasing the footage. Why? Because you think he's a hero?
Is he?
Well, I mean, again,
I mean,
is he a hero?
I think it was a huge mistake by the Israelis to release the footage because now he's an icon, right?
Is he?
Well, I mean,
he's an icon for throwing a fucking stick. Okay.
Again,
I mean,
someone's terrorist is someone else's hero, right?
Right. All he did was lob a piece of wood at them. That was it.
Yeah. Well.
By the way, Israel did not make a mistake by releasing the footage. I love Israel more because of them being transparent about these things. Okay, so you're condemning Israel for releasing information, being transparent. Like, no, this is great. Israel, instead of judging if this is good for propaganda or bad for propaganda, this is information that if people want, if it's safe for us to release it, if it's not going to sacrifice our soldiers' safety, then we're going to release it. This is the transparency of Israel. So you have this mindset of an Islamic country that is just only into propaganda. Your side is only into propaganda and nothing else. But we have Israel, a liberal country that releases information if it's safe to do so. So yeah, no, I love Israel's transparency. I love that they just release the imagery when they have it.
Oh, well, I mean, he was also like, he was lost an arm and he was there and it took them 3 tanks to bring down the house. I mean, hey, you can.
By the way, here's the thing, like, oh, he's an icon. He was a hero. He was a great fighter. Okay. So then good thing we killed him. So look at this. This is like one side, the mindset of a third pole mindset goes for stories and narratives and just propaganda and hero making. But the other side is pragmatic. Which side? Here's the thing. even if let's say he is a hero for your side, let's say he was a great fighter, okay, you could have all those good feelings for your side, okay, all the, oh my god, look at our martyrs, look how strong they are, look how defiant they are. Let my side have the victories when it comes to eliminating these people, killing your leaders, eliminating your fighting capacity, taking over, occupying any parts of the land that is hostile to civilians, crushing the enemies, okay? You could have all the stories and all the narratives and all the, oh my god, this was such a powerful leader, all of those types of victory for you guys, as long as all the type of victory where all your equipment and your military facilities goes to smithereens and all the terrorists see their dicks and blown out, and all your leaders dying in mysterious ways, we will take those victories for our side. You could have the victory of your leader throwing a stick at the very last moment. All of those types of victories, you could have all of that for you.
And respect your enemy.
But when you saw the footage, for example, of
You know, some people are saying like, no, he was a coward. Yes, he was a coward. No, he wasn't a coward. I don't fucking care. Let's say he was the bravest man ever lived. Okay, well, he was eliminated. So this means Israel's victory even better. We took out a great hero from your side. Fantastic. So what now? He's dead. What did he bring? This great hero of yours, what did he bring for you other than death and destruction? Other than this amazing, brave warrior on the Hamas side, what did he bring to you other than death and destruction? Wasn't this the same person who celebrated the death of Palestinian civilians because he thought their blood would bring strength to the resistance? Your great hero brought nothing but destruction to the Palestinians.
Sinnoh in one of the tunnels he'd helped create, spending the billions that have been given to Hamas.
Billions?
Well, they were given billions of dollars.
Look, here's another tactic he's using. Piers Morgan is mentioning some facts. He doesn't have any counters, and for his audience, he just repeats the words with a question mark at the end to bring doubt to the audience whether or not what Piers is saying is true or not, even though what Piers is saying is a verified truth, right? We have seen videos of it, but he knows that he doesn't have to provide any counter arguments. He just has to say billions, and that's enough for his audience to think like, that's false. He doesn't have to make an argument. He doesn't have to provide evidence. He just has to say it loudly with a question mark at the end. Look at this tactic. This is a very interesting tactic.
But when you saw the footage, for example, of Sinnoh in one of the tunnels he'd helped create, spending the billions that have been given to Hamas.
Billions?
Well, they were given billions of dollars. And I would...
Yeah, yes, Sinnoh has been given billions of dollars to build those tunnels, right? That's a verified fact. But he has nothing to say about it except billions. And he's like, well, they have been. You're like, that's how the other side gets convinced. Like, are you sure? Yes, we're fucking sure, motherfucker. This is verified. Unbelievable. They have admitted that. They have admitted that they get billions from the Islamic Republic to build these tunnels. What are you?
Would say Netanyahu was quite happy to do that because he wanted to create a split between Hamas and the Palestinian Authority. So I'm not.
So why are we blaming Hamas? Why are you not blaming?
No, I'm just saying that Hamas had an option of how to spend that money.
Yeah,
they were the government in power, and they chose predominantly to spend it on a tunnel system and arming themselves. When you see Sinnoh walking through that tunnel safely with his wife and his kids and so on, and there's a load of money next to him.
A load of money?
It was a huge part.
Oh, see that tactic again. A load of money? Yes, they're fucking videos. He was there in the tunnels with a shit ton of money. A load of money? Like, yeah, guys, that's a mechanism that people use in debates. They have no facts, nothing on their side. A lot of money. Okay, like we could dismantle Palestine in this way. It could be like, this is like, oh, the Arabs own land in this region. Arabs own land? I could basically dismiss the existence of Arabs entirely if this is a debate tactic. These Arabs exist, you say? Like what? What is this debate tactic? Oh, you just like loudly say something with a question mark at the end. That's your debate tactic? Okay. What is this Palestine you speak of?
Pile of cash next to where he was supposedly sleeping. When you see that,
See, you see that? He says, like, sure, let's like, sure, buddy. Like, see that? Listen to that.
kids and so on, and there's a load of money next to him.
A load of money?
There was a huge pile of cash next to where he was supposedly sleeping. When you see that, do you not think
you see, you hear the that's like, yeah, sure.
that he betrayed his own people?
No.
That they weren't able to use these tunnels, the Palestinians.
Well,
He knew when he activated October the 7th and ordered it, what the reaction was likely to be. He was sentencing to death immediately thousands of his own people, none of whom were allowed, apart from the Hamas elements, to use the tunnel system. I mean, is that not a sickening betrayal of his people?
Well, let's talk about the billions of dollars who were what was actually used. I remember a report by Ben Shapiro, and he brought
What? Why, guys? Piers, stop him! He's running away. So Piers is asking a question. Don't you think Palestinian people were being betrayed? Well, all this money that could be been used to better the lives of Palestinians were used on war and destruction and building these tunnels that were specifically for Hamas, and nothing was built for the Palestinian people to defend themselves. That was a specific question. Don't you feel like with all these billions and all these tunnels, this was a betrayal of Palestinian people? It's like, well, let's talk about something else. Do you see that? Do you guys see that? Like, do you guys? I can't believe this.
Well, let's talk about the billions of dollars who were.
I mean, is that not a sickening betrayal of his people?
Well, let's talk about the billions of dollars who were what was actually used. I remember a report by Ben Shapiro, and he brought like videos of Hamas.
What are you doing? Stop him! Piers, stop him! He's getting away. He's changing the subject. Stop the mother. Oh my God. Oh, we got another super chat. So we got 12 out of 20. So we have only 2 more minutes to reach 20. I don't think we're gonna reach 20 super chats, but we got pretty decent. We got 12 super chats today. So let me see what the super chat is saying. Yeah, 3. I don't know if I'm reading that right. It's saying, yeah, S put up. Oh, what? Put up such a fight. What is S? Am I reading this right? But yes, you are right. This is not comedy. He is not as serious and just trying to crack jokes and be ironic. Like we all know, Israel is so evil and Jews so X and Y and Z. Yes, okay. I understand the second part, but I don't understand the first part. What is the first part? Oh, Sinnoh. Okay, so Sinnoh. Yes, so Sinnoh put up such a fight. Yeah, you know what? You know what, guys? Don't fight them over this. You're right, okay? Don't fight them over this. Sinnoh put up such a fight. Didn't he put such a fight? Like, just give them that. Just like, okay, yes, Sinnoh was this great hero of yours that was so brave. This was your greatest warrior. Look at how amazing of a fighter we are. And look how pathetically weak you are compared to Israel. That was so easy for Israel to just... So your greatest warrior was like... done. Israel as a nation state, you know, when you started the war with Israel in 1948, it was so many Arab countries against this newly just formed Israeli nation state. And even then, Israel just handed their ass to you and destroyed all 6 countries against one, against a country that is 1 day old, and Israel managed to somehow defend itself even then. And over the years, Israel as a nation state keeps getting stronger and stronger and stronger, while these Arab countries are left behind because Israel has a better model. Israel is using the liberal model and is becoming more developed economically, financially, technologically, scientifically, politically, in every sense. It's getting more and more powerful, to the point that your greatest warrior has one at the point that Israel could just press a button and kill your strongest warrior. So if this was you're in trouble as a resistance movement if this is the best you have. This is your greatest warrior that Israel could just squash like a little bug, like that. Okay, so fantastic. This was your greatest. This is the best you have. Look how powerful Israel has become ever since that you tried to, when Israel was small, you tried to squish it and you weren't able to do so. And now Israel is strong and you're the small one, and your strongest, most powerful hero can be squished so easily. You could be found in a hole and squished like a bug. This is what you have. This is your, sure. Let's actually give them that. This is your greatest. See how easy it is for Israel to take out your greatest. Then give up the fucking fight. If this is the best you can do, if the best you could do is throw a stick at the drone, then it's over. If the best that you could do now is throw a stick at the fucking drone, then you have been fucking defeated. Give up. Give up this fight. Give up this war and have peace. Maybe being peace. You should be celebrating this warmonger being dead. Maybe now Palestinians could have hope for some stability in the region. Anyways. Let's continue.
As digging up.
Okay, guys, let's end this here because we are already at 3 hours. So let me know if I should continue this. I don't know if I continue this, it's going to get much of a reception. I want to continue finishing this because there's so much more bullshit. There's so much, like I got into 20 minutes, and the whole thing is an hour and 12 minutes. It got me 3 hours to go through 20 minutes. And again, the most is here. Like most of the bullshit is in the second fucking half. Like the level of nonsense. Like there's some stuff here that is unbelievably insane. Like the second half, he accuses Israel for killing Israelis at October 7th. He says he believes in the conspiracy theory that it was done by, I could show you. Let me know if I should do this. But again, a lot of you are saying yes, but I don't know if his second part will get that much attention. Let me know if a second part will get more attention because there's so much nonsense that I need to respond to. Guys, who does this? Like, who does this? Is like what we're doing here on this channel is amazing together, sitting here together. I did 3 hours for 20 minutes of nonsense. If I finish this video, this series of these videos would be the most complete dismantling of Bassem Youssef in existence anywhere. Right? I did that to Mehdi Hassan. The most beautiful takedown of Mehdi Hassan has been done on this channel, going over every fucking single claim in a way that these other people don't do it. Like what I'm doing, the fact checking that I'm doing here, Piers Morgan is not doing that. I'm going every single claim that is being made here. I'm fact checking it for you. We're doing this together here. This is we're getting into so deep, so nuanced, and I'm giving you the evidence. You could also double check it. I'm giving you the fact checking. This channel is worth getting bigger, and again, this is a lot of, because it gets too detailed and so too nuanced, a lot of people don't welcome it because we're getting into so much information, and a lot of people just pick their side and just remember a couple of lines for supporting their side, and that's basically it. But here on this channel, we're going in deep. And that's not a really good way to grow a channel, because a good way to grow a channel is just do it black and white. Like just remember the best lines against the other side and just repeat it. People fucking love that. But I don't love that. I don't enjoy that. If you think what we're doing here on this channel is valuable, please subscribe. Please recommend this channel. Please like all our fucking streams. That really helps us with the algorithm. I mean, we are growing faster than usual, and we are not getting as demonetized as you before. Let me see on this stream, have we get demonetized? Because I swore a lot. YouTube is being nicer to us recently. We haven't been demonetized after 3 hours of me swearing. So YouTube is being nicer to us. So that's great. So the channel is doing really good and growing. I think that this, more people are recognizing the value of this channel. So please go ahead and help us grow. Word of mouth actually really helps. And Gene is here. By the way, Gene, I will respond to you on Telegram. Sorry for my late responses. I've been so busy. I will respond. But thank you, Jason, for the super chat. And thank you, Sarah, for highlighting the comments. And also thank you, El Rito just became a YouTube member. Fantastic. Guys, our membership is growing as well. Thank you for memberships and super chats. Help this channel going. So thank you. All right, guys, I'm gonna head out. This is 3-hour live stream. I can go on for another 3 hours, to be honest, but I think like nobody would watch a 6-hour live stream, so that's why I have to end it here. Thank you, guys. Mwah, mwah, mwah. See you till next stream. Leave comments. Tell me if I should continue finishing this one, or not. Let me know. I'm gonna read the comments after. Okay, or should I move on to something else? All right. Bye, guys. Mwah.